always starts with me walking back to the chair. I feel so fancy about it. That was sarcasm because I don't feel fancy because I should be like if it was a real TV show,
Right.
I'd be like sitting ready to go, like
And
in
we're
the thing.
live.
And we're live. All right, hey everybody, meaning probably nobody because it's 9 a.m. in the morning. This is another episode of. So I called it the Popcorn Space Podcast, but I was like, man, what if I started doing it in the mornings? That'd be like a cool thing. And I could call it the Coffee Space Podcast. Or does Coffee Space just sound completely dumb? If you're watching this live, let me know. If you're watching or listening, if you're watching the audio-only podcast on popcornspace.com, then email me at jackson@popcornspace. Yeah, jackson@popcornspace.com. And let me know if Coffee Space sounds stupid. And we'll think about it. This coffee is... So I was thinking about it when I got up, because I went and got coffee, and then we got here, and I was wondering if it would be too cold by the time we started. But mine tastes not cold.
Mine's
That was
pretty
yours.
warm.
Yeah, you got a topper on yours, and I have my extra shut in here, in case.
Nice.
So it doesn't get cold.
Hate cold coffee.
I'm going to ask you a question, so I can post this on my Facebook real quick. I know you, and your name is what?
Mallory Gilley.
Okay. I said, who are you, and how would you define yourself? Like, qualifying traits about you. Like, imagine that you're a friend of yours, and you're trying to explain yourself to this other friend. Like, have you met Mallory Gilley? No, I haven't. Oh, man, well, you should. She's this kind of person. She's very into the, like, in your most like, elevator pitch for yourself. Go ahead, and I'm gonna share this on Facebook.
I think typically what people say is like, have you met Mallory? She's like a nice little chick.
A nice little chick.
Plays and sings around town, like at church, at coffee shops. That's probably what they would say. Usually they just say, she's nice. She's sweet.
Right. Now I know you used to, there we go. Now I know you used to play with your sister. Do you still do that?
Sometimes.
Just not
very,
strictly?
No, and not very often.
Okay.
Anymore.
So
probably like
sorry, keep going.
a couple of times.
Yeah.
Every other month.
So what kind of stuff do you normally play? Is it originals or is it covers, and covers of what, if so?
Yeah, so with Taylor we play a lot of covers, and I think anytime I've done anything solo, I've done a lot of covers too. I have some originals I like to play, but I just don't have stuff I think for probably like a full set, so
Yeah.
mostly covers. Pretty much anything from like the 70s to now.
Yeah.
I'm not sure maybe we have more from the past too. We've got some Beatles stuff happening. So.
Some Beatles stuff happening?
Yeah.
Do you ever take songs that are already very well known? I don't know. So something like All You Need Is Love or something, or
Yes.
like come together and do it like in a very different way. Trying to reinvent old songs.
Yeah. I think some of our songs are kind of like that. Usually with the old songs though, it's hard to get around the way that you've heard them for so long.
Yeah.
With a newer song, it's a lot easier to take it and be like, I'm gonna just switch this up entirely.
Yeah, I remember it was forever ago, but you guys were playing Disarm by the Smashing Pumpkins, but you were doing it the way the Civil Wars do it, but I hadn't heard the Civil Wars do it yet, so I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And so I was listening to it, and I was like, did they make this up? That's so cool. I was like, what a cool reinvention of this song.
Another one we did that's totally nothing like the original is Nothing Else Matters by Metallica. Mm-hmm. Because how could you do
And did you make it the way that you sang it, or was it somebody else who did? Okay, cool. Yeah. Cool. I feel like that's...
the super chill version.
It's definitely a cool interaction of artistic minds that, I don't know, you can co-create something with someone you've never met, I guess, and create your own version of something they've done. I feel like that would be incredibly flattering if I'd written a song and someone did their own version of it. I'd be like, that's so cool. They took what I did and they took time to work on it. Like, that's so cool to me. So, yeah.
I hope so.
What would you feel if someone took your song and changed it all up?
I think it would be cool as long as it felt like something they did because they loved that piece of art and wanted to, like, it was personal to them, so they made it their own.
Yeah.
As opposed to, like, if you did something and it was kind of like, I feel like this song should be a slow song.
Yeah.
And so they rewrite it. That's kind of different. Sometimes you can tell they're trying, like, really
I can
hard
see
to
that. I know that Weird Al at first didn't ask anybody because he wasn't famous enough to get contact with anybody, and he would do these parodies is kind of different.
Yeah.
Because I guess you could consider that he's making fun of a song, but I don't see that at all. And I've seen a lot of interviews with him, and I don't think he thinks he's making fun of a song.
Right.
He's kind of making fun with a song.
Yeah.
And he's being able to take a melody that everyone knows, so it's almost like you could sing along, or you could, you know, tap your foot along because you know that melody so well, but he's able to do comedy with it. And I think that's really interesting, but I think it was Madonna got really mad at him for making Like a Surgeon.
Really?
Instead of Like a Virgin, yeah.
Oh my goodness.
And I think it was after that he started asking everybody, and he talked about all the people he got to talk to, and it was really cool. He said Michael Jackson was like the nicest person ever, and he was like, oh my God, I'd love for you to do another one of my songs. And who was the one person who said no to him? I think it was Paul McCartney or something, because he went, I can't remember what the song was, but it was something about like Thanksgiving or something. Mm-hmm. And Paul McCartney was like, I don't want anything to be about, like, he was a vegetarian or something weird, like some weird thing like that. I could totally have the person wrong and the song wrong, I don't even know. But it was something like, something involving meat, and the person didn't want it to be involving meat, or something like that. But, yeah, so, I don't know, I think that's really cool, and if someone ever took one of my songs and parodied it, or just changed the way that it was done, I feel like I was part of something bigger than I even intended to be a part of.
Yeah, for
even if it was something I didn't enjoy. Like, even if I didn't enjoy the song, I'd be like, that's still cool that they took it and did that.
I was going to say, I don't think I could imagine, like, being mad about it.
Yeah.
Even if they did it, and I was like, okay.
Well, have you seen, I can't remember what those guys' names are, but they do, like, the Screamo covers of everything, which is a generous title, because it's not really Screamo, it's more just, like, hard rock.
Yeah.
And almost more, like, middle school emo hard rock.
Right.
But they did the bunch of Taylor Swift songs, whatever.
Really?
Yeah, I actually opened my musical with one of them. I opened my musical with Blank Space by whoever they were.
Oh, that's awesome.
Because, you know, the main character ran a radio show. And so it opened with that, and then he turned it off and then started speaking. But yeah, so I'm very involved with artists.
I think the only
things.
one I've heard, like, recently from them is their cover of Adele.
Yeah.
The Screamo Hello.
So I know this is, I haven't heard that, but I know I'm about to change courses kind of a little bit. I know that I do this because I've seen myself in video form doing it. I feel like I could not have a conversation with myself because my eyes just, like, move when I'm talking to people.
Me too,
I hate it. I think it's the worst thing ever.
You don't, like, look them straight in the eye and just look, you just, like, are
I don't know what it is about my personality, like, unconsciously, while I'm looking at someone, and I used to do it because I used to make YouTube videos forever ago, and I would notice it when I was making those videos, and I would try to edit out every time I did that, because in the middle of talking, all of a sudden my eyes would just start to look kind of weird and insane, like I had something wrong with my head, and like I wasn't paying attention. Yeah. It just felt unprofessional. I don't know, it was very weird, and I was not comfortable with it. I was like, why do I do that? Do I do that all the time? But sometimes, every now and again, I'll catch myself doing it. Yeah. I'm like, this is good. I don't know how to fix it, though, because I'd have to go to some intense training, because I don't even know that I do it. My, what was it, my theater class freshman year pointed out to me that I did it. Yeah. And I was like, yeah, I know. I've seen myself in videos do it. And they would just make fun of me all the time. And be like, you'll be looking right at someone, talking to them, and then your, like, eyes will dart for a second. I'm like, yeah, I know.
That is so mean.
I feel like a little, I don't know, like some weird little kid when I do it. So,
oh my goodness.
There's that. You might want to know.
I don't know, but I think I might have that same problem.
I certainly don't notice it with you.
Okay.
But
hopefully I just look people straight in the face.
Yeah, it's like I've got some weird kind of problem. It's like my eyes are like the wrong like the opposite end of a magnet or something. So every time I try to look, it's like they just go off and I don't even mean to.
Nice.
So, what is your main interest or hobby? Would you consider it music, I guess? More specifically,
yes.
writing and singing music?
I think it would just be music in general, just anything.
Including listening to music and
and it's kind of
music.
like, it's kind of funny and kind of hard because I feel like this is my main hobby, but it's also the thing I make the most like money doing.
Yeah.
And that sounds really strange, like, I don't know, just to say it because it's
well,
really
what is
something.
even the definition of a hobby? Do you have to not make money for it to be a hobby?
I don't think so.
Just like not a profession.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But I don't know, some people have said, like, she's a professional because she gets paid. And that feels really
You're a professional hobbyist.
Yeah, because I really just, like, do it for the heck of it. And the times when I do get paid, it feels really, like, surreal.
How often?
It's something I love.
How often do you do a gig where you get paid? Or how often do you really do gigs?
Well, a gig that I get paid, not so much recently, because I usually do stuff with Taylor, with our version and stuff. But I actually do stuff every week at the church, and I get paid for that. So, I mean, that's similar, but that's, like, in a worship context. So
yeah, so you wouldn't consider it a gig.
Exactly, not like a gig where I'm just, showing songs and stuff.
One of my favorite lines from Scott Pilgrim is like, Scott, a gig is 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 a gig. Can you do this for the band? For the band? For the band? Yeah. So, we never even got to the end of that. So how often do you do, like, what you would consider a gig? On a normal basis, because I know you've been gone for like 2 weeks.
Yeah. Well, I actually did one while I was gone, even.
You did a gig in Alaska?
Yes, I did.
Was it spontaneous, or was it planned by, like, your family?
No, it was planned, yeah. That was part of why I went
like, that would be pretty incredible.
Yeah, they did this, like, really huge seniors dinner in Juneau. They do it, like, every year. And there are actually, like, a lot of veterans there from the Coast Guard. And it was really cool, because I just got to play, like, kind of a Christmas song I wrote, and then a couple of Christmas carols.
Yeah.
It was fun. But yeah, I guess, I think, to be honest, I about do it maybe once a month or every other month.
Yeah.
Right now. That's not as, like...
It was more than I do.
Not as regular as I would like.
Yeah.
We used to do one, like, twice a month. So it would be, like, every other week. Which I really like that rhythm.
Yeah.
Nice.
Well, I mean, there's something about doing... I don't know, what you consider art, and this warrants a deeper conversation that we'll get into. But there's something about doing that just, like, I don't know, I feel like puts you in tune with the world.
Yeah.
And it just feels natural and nice, and you feel like you're in your correct habitat. Yeah. And so, I used to make YouTube videos all the time, and my huge, like, when I was doing them all the time, I was doing once a week, and that was, like it was kind of stressful, because I wanted to make sure they came out on Monday every day,
right.
And, I was just, like, in 6th and 7th grade or whatever,
yeah.
But it was so much fun, because I knew, like, no matter what, no matter, like, if I had to, like stress out and do it in a really quick amount of time, rush, like, I was going to be doing a video, making some form of content that I enjoyed once a week, and so it was nice to know that.
Yeah, for sure.
And have that. Yeah, and so then I think it was like 8th grade or freshman year when I really stopped doing that, because I started getting into writing, like, bigger projects, working on films and stuff like that. And so I hadn't done anything kind of consistently in forever.
Right.
And the first thing I really feel like I did consistently was, I would do plays at school, and that was nice to get into, but as far as creating, like, a film project, these were huge projects that, I'd work on for a long time. My last screenplay I wrote for, almost 2 years. I spent writing it, and I haven't even created it. I hope I will someday.
Right.
But that's the whole thing about screenwriters, is that it's so difficult, because you have to just keep writing, and that's what everyone says, is they say, you write something, and then, hey, you just write something else, and you just keep going. And it's so difficult, because I fall in love with what I write. And I'm like, I want to create it, but I don't have the money to do it, so I just got to get my writing better and keep going.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm so good at getting off of money trails, but anyways, I haven't done anything really consistent in a while until, I guess it was 2018, it was the beginning, it was in February, when I started my Best Picture Brothers podcast.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was me and my two friends who talk all the time anyways.
Yeah.
And we talk about movies a lot.
Might as well record it, right?
Yeah, and we were just talking about doing a podcast. We've been talking about it for a while. And then I decided, I was like, I got in this phase where I was like, man, there's so many classic movies I haven't seen that I want to see. And I was like, I'm going to, in order, watch every Best Picture, so then I can say I've seen all the Best Pictures. And then I can feel knowledgeable. And so I was going to watch it once a week, and then I was like, it'd be fun to watch it with somebody else, and I texted my friend Trey, and I was like, hey, do you want to watch Best Pictures with me every week, just so we can say we've seen all of them and help us, in our movie knowledge? And he was like, yeah, it'd be a lot of fun. And then we were talking to Spencer about it, and I was like, man, that's what we should do our podcast about. That'd be cool. We do it, we kind of review it and talk about how it relates to movies today, and we had a lot of fun doing that, and it was so nice and, sobering to be able to finally do something again every week consistently. It's so nice to create content. For me, I don't know why. Because YouTube videos consisted of writing, filming, editing, and then uploading.
Yeah.
But podcasts, I'm taking all of those and putting it together. I wrote a few bullet point notes yesterday in preparation for it, but we're streaming right now, so we're kind of skipping the uploading part.
Yeah.
Not really writing it, and we're just kind of all throwing it into one, and it's I don't know, it's nice to be doing this. So that's one of the reasons that I love podcasting. Also, I feel like I like to have deeper, more meaningful conversations with people.
Yeah, for sure.
And I like to kind of discover things about myself and the world and evolve. And I think it's nice to put out there for other people to kind of, I don't know, leech is not a positive word, but leech off of your conversation.
Right.
Because I feel like I do that with other people's podcasts, which is I'll listen to it and, they're discovering stuff about each other and themselves, and I'm simultaneously learning from that experience. It's kind of a really interesting human connection thing. I've gone off. Anyways, my point is that I'm super happy to be doing something like this consistently.
Yes, there's definitely something really sharpening about doing something consistently, and just
you feel
especially something especially something that you love, or something like music or something like a podcast that you can give and take and learn from somebody else, and because even in just music when you're performing, you're learning something about how people respond to certain things and different sounds, and something that you can make yourself, and it's just really cool. It's a connection that you can't really get.
Well, you continuously evolve and learn as you go, and stuff like that. I think it's funny. So I'm a waiter, and I've been waiting since August. How many months is that? Was it 4 months or whatever?
Yeah.
It's been a while. I only wait tables twice a week because I've got another job working for a production company. So I'm kind of new, but I'm not new because I've been there for a long time, but I don't work all the time. So I'm still learning stuff, and it comes up every now and again. So for instance, yesterday, this woman who I guess was British, the rest of her family, it definitely seemed like it was a husband, wife, and a kid, but the husband and kid were totally American. Or they certainly sounded totally American.
For sure.
And this, who I assume was the wife, was completely British. And she was like, can I have some hot tea? And I was like, hot tea?
Is that on the menu?
I was like, yeah, I think so. And she kind of looked at me and was like, oh, do you not have it? And I was like, honestly, I do not know. I've never had anybody order that. And so I was like, I'll go check. And I went back and I asked, and this guy was like, yeah, we have hot tea. And so then I saw her. She was coming back from the bathroom or something. Because I didn't go by her table, but I saw her down the hall. And I was like, oh, hey, good news, we have hot tea. And I started walking back towards the kitchen. I was like, why did I say that before I knew for certain? Because I was like, with my luck, I'm going to go back there and be like, yeah, we do, but we're out today.
Oh, nice.
Luckily, we did. It was super interesting because you get hot water for them, and then we had this big box, and you have to go present it like an engagement ring, and it's got 15 different tea bags in there.
That's nice. I didn't know that.
I know, it was really fancy. She was very stoked about it, but yeah, it's funny, because I feel so on top of the game. I mean, next time somebody says you want to, it's no problem. I know the drill.
Yeah.
But
we actually have 15 different things.
It's kind of embarrassing and disorienting when someone says to me, I'm like, man, I wish I knew the answer to that.
Yeah.
And there's tons of times, so it says there's a description of everything we have on the menu, like right under it.
Mm-hmm.
And people will ask me what's in it. I'm like, I don't remember at this moment. I think it says it in there.
Oh my.
But yeah, it's interesting. Like constantly, we're evolving. It's like I enjoy these moments because now I feel more and more prepared every time. It's like I'm prepared for so many more questions because I know the drill.
Yeah.
I got it down. But yeah. Anyways, so what is your favorite aspect of your gigs that you perform or whatever? Would you say it's like would you say it's the performing part when you're actually performing the music, or when like people afterwards? I know that like sometimes when people perform, you have people coming up to you just being like, "Thank you for doing that." Like it's just a really nice to have people kind of illuminate, even if it's background music. If you're performing at like a coffee shop or something,
for sure.
It's just really nice to have that, and it's so like we're so quick to neglect it, or neglected is probably not the right word. What's the word?
I guess neglect or ignore.
Ignore, not completely appreciate.
Exactly.
I don't know if neglect is the word. I don't know, but we're so quick to not completely appreciate it because we're so used to like, I've got an echo right here. Anytime I want to put on background music, I'll just be like, hey, play some 70s music or
it kind of feels
something
obscure
jazzy.
to your live music,
Yeah, it's so easy, and there's nothing really going on. Like, it's a computer. There's no one like slaving to create this music.
Right.
And you forget when you're at a coffee shop, like, there's a person right now like performing who had to practice and learn all these songs and is been playing for who knows how long, because I just walk into the coffee shop and you're playing.
Right.
You kind of forget that, and so I think it's definitely important to thank musicians when you get a chance. But would you think that that's a nice? You what?
Applaud them.
Yeah,
this generation is so weird about clapping.
I would say it's weird at coffee shops and stuff, because my cousin Andrew performs at a bunch of random places a lot, and he was performing at Fuzzies, in the bar in Fuzzies.
Yeah.
And I went there the other day, and we went in there, and we were supporting him, and we didn't know. Like, after he finished, we kind of tried to clap, but no one else was.
Yeah,
they're all living their own lives, having their own conversations.
There's definitely like times when it makes sense and times when it doesn't. But I've been around like specific like young crowds where there's like nothing else going on.
Yeah.
And they're just sitting there, and they'll like video us on their phones, like post it on their Snapchats, and they're like, hey, but they like forget like to like talk to us or like interact with us like we're like
you're not a person or something.
Yeah. So it's kind of weird. I know they don't mean any like harm by it, but it's just kind of different how. Like, I grew up, if you heard music, you would just clap. Right. Like, regardless of if anyone was clapping. Like, especially live music.
It's hard to know. I was about to make the vast generalization and say this generation or whatever.
Right,
But it's hard to even talk that way because,
we're
so freaking young. I don't know anything about the past. I know what people have told me,
Right.
And knowing what I know about life itself is that when people tell stories, they skew a lot, and it's hard to completely understand. Have you ever been in a scenario and someone starts telling you a story about like something that like you already know or something that you were there for, but they started telling it and you don't want to stop them, so you go ahead and let them go, and then you realize as they're telling the story, you're like, that's not how it happened, and I feel like you're leaving out a lot of really important things, Yeah. Have you ever been in a scenario like that? And you realize like, and you probably do it, I mean, we both probably do it too. You just like kind of unintentionally skew information from the way you perceived it or whatever.
Definitely.
And you leave things out. And so that's crazy to think about like all of history because, if we, take a nice history class, like, we're both graduated from high school. So it's like we feel like we know kind of the basics, right?
Yeah.
Enough. But think about even historians probably skew unintentionally a lot of information. So it's like, God, what are we missing? Like, I feel like I really don't even know anything about the past.
Yeah.
Knowing these very basic stories or whatever. So, it's
I guess it just like this generation isn't like currently right now. These young people are like this. I'm sure maybe later they won't be or.
Well,
but either way, maybe that's the new applause. Is like people
is no applause.
Like
just
applause
filming with their
people
phones.
like filming you and posting you to their Snapchat. Which I mean, it feels really honoring anyway, because it's like, oh, that's so.
It is kind
They're
of
gonna,
interesting.
Like, share my music, and who knows how many people are gonna hear me now because that's so far out of my.
That's funny you say that. That's like the new applause. I can totally see.
It's kind of weird
kind of a way of showing.
I feel like an old soul, but it's gonna be good.
Well, it's also more. It's like more personal than applause because they're like, this person is good enough that I want to, or in some cases bad enough that I want to, but good enough that I want to show, my friends and the people who follow me, like, my nose is getting stuffed up in every point that I make, but I want to share this with people, and so it's kind of like more of a commitment than just applauding because I could not like someone and just be like, oh, they kind of deserve applause and clap real quick.
Yeah,
so
I guess so.
It's interesting because if it is the new applause or whatever, it's more, you're going to have to earn it a little more, I would think.
Yeah, and then I guess they could save that and then watch it 10 years from now.
Yeah.
Be like, oh, there's a memory on there. Stories.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It's very interesting. There are certainly upsides and downsides to social media, but that's an interesting one to see that kind of gratitude, or it's not even actually gratitude. It's almost somewhere in between selfishness and selflessness because I'm doing this for them, but I'm also doing it for me because I want to share this and see it later. The generalization that I was going to make about our generation not applauding is it feels like because of social media and probably a handful of other things. We're so scared to be vulnerable now, and I feel it too.
Yeah.
And we don't want to be the first one to do anything. We're like in these. We want to be a part of a movement. We want to be a part of things that everyone's on board. We want to be on the bandwagon.
You want to be the one single person.
Well, it's funny, and people talk about revolutions that we're having right now, socially, and all these different things. You need to be a rebel and do this, and it's but it's not really rebellious because everyone's doing it.
Yeah.
I'm not saying anything about the movements or revolutions, whether they're right or wrong, but it's just that you wouldn't be or you certainly wouldn't be as comfortable doing this alone. It's because it's a group of people. It's about this identity that you share with all these other people.
For sure.
And so something like clapping in a coffee shop scenario, there's always that one guy who's very confident in himself and understands who can start clapping, and then more people start clapping with him.
Sure,
But you nowadays don't always have that guy, and a lot of these millennials and Generation Z, we're Generation Z, right? I think that's what we are.
Z or X?
We're not X. X was in the 70s or 80s or something. But I believe we're Generation Z. I think 94 is the cutoff or something like that. But all of us kind of, we don't know what to do, and I felt it too before. When you're in a situation, you kind of maybe clap for a second, a very light clap to feel the room. No one's clapping. You're like, I'm not gonna be the only one to clap.
Yeah.
That's embarrassing. That's vulnerable. People are gonna look at me.
I think
it's gonna feel like I don't know what I'm doing. But we're so used to hiding behind screens that we can plan out whatever we say or whatever we do.
Right.
And kind of, I don't know, living life feels so vulnerable when you're not behind a screen or on the phone.
I think it's just a good way to acknowledge the artist's vulnerability.
Oh, I certainly think it's
for
good
putting
to
it
clap.
out there.
I just think that's why we don't. I think it's bad that we don't.
Yeah.
But I think that's probably a huge factor as to why.
Yeah, probably. That makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, and you don't clap after listening to a YouTube video on your phone, which is what you do most of the time. Mm-hmm. So I guess it's not.
Sometimes I feel sometimes depending on the mood of the movie, after a movie's over in a theater, I'm I want to clap. I just want to start clapping. And I can't remember what movie it was where the entire audience clapped afterwards.
It's probably a first showing. A lot of
Well, yeah, it was definitely a first showing. I can't remember what it was though. I don't know. I have weird experiences in movie theaters. For example, I saw Call Me by Your Name by myself. Do you know what that movie is?
No idea.
It's very controversial because it was about a homosexual relationship. It's a good movie. I enjoyed it. I've gone back and forth on whether I enjoyed it or not because there was some moral ambiguity in it with I don't want to spoil it because it's actually good. You should
Yeah.
watch it. But like involving two different relationships kind of going on, and you kind of don't know like my morality wants to be like, well, what about that person, you know? And so
Yeah.
I've gone back and forth on whether I liked it. But I mean, the score is beautiful. The cinematography is beautiful. It makes me want to live in Italy, and I really do genuinely care about the characters. Because of that, it made me wonder if I like it or not.
Right.
So I think I've decided I do enjoy that movie, but it's, you know, it's very heavy homosexual, and I'm just sitting in a theater, or not even homosexual, just sexual in general.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of a very sexual movie, and I'm sitting in a theater alone, like by myself, and it was right before it was taken out of theaters,
Mm-hmm.
so it was literally me. A couple like a row behind me, like a few seats, so they're like right over my shoulder.
Yeah.
And then there was one other lonesome guy by himself. Like when you see some kind of romantic movie by yourself, it is so sad. Like I'm watching it, I'm like, oh, that's sweet. I'm alone forever, you know. And then I had a couple freaking right behind me, just being in love, looking at me alone. Those are fun experiences to have.
Sure.
I'm trying to think of any other weird theater experiences. I haven't gone to the theater by myself enough, I feel like. I feel like that's probably interesting to hang out with yourself. How do you feel about yourself? Like, do you get along with yourself? Let me rephrase. Let me tell you what I mean by that. Like, I don't know. Do you find more often than not that you get like angry with yourself for what you've done? Because I know that I used to do that a lot because when I was more kind of impulsive, and so I found myself just when I would do something stupid or say something stupid or feel bad about it later. Even maybe I don't think it's stupid at first, and then later, why would I do that? What is wrong with me? Why can I not like control myself to not say something so stupid? And I wrote this down. This is one of the points. Do you get along with yourself? I just wrote too much internal conflict more often than not. More often than being satisfied with kind of, I mean, not narcissism, but just being satisfied with yourself and okay with who you are and kind of okay being alone with your thoughts. So that's a very wide open question that I throw at you, but feel free to unpack it.
I think I'm comfortable, like, alone with my thoughts. I definitely, like, enjoy, like, thinking on things that I've done and kind of reflecting on them. Like, do I really feel like that's something, or who I want to be, or what I want to be after I do things, which is kind of weird because I feel like some people don't. I don't know if everybody reflects on, like, things that they've done a lot. Like, even, like, 5 minutes ago, like, thinking about.
Yeah, I definitely think we become mindless a lot.
Yeah, for sure.
So we probably don't reflect as often as
I tend
maybe
to, like,
we should.
Overthink and, like, spin on stuff. And it can be constructive.
I was about to interrupt you and say, what do you define as overthinking? What is thinking too much?
Yeah, I mean, I guess just, like, there are probably some decisions I don't need to, like, think, was that really the right time to, like,
would you say that impairs you in some way? Like why is it overthinking? Why is it not just thinking a lot? What is this top that you are going over? Yeah,
I just feel like if it's thoughts about me, like, maybe there's time that I could have been, like, spending thinking about somebody else. Or, like, already getting into action, like a thought for someone else. Like, I'm going to think about this person consciously. And then I'm going to make a conscious decision to, like, be involved with the world around me. That way. And do something with, like, I don't know, like, just the people around you. So, I think that's what I mean, because sometimes, like, I tend to, like, retreat by myself and then think about, like, so many things. And it usually has to do with myself. And it can be good, but I think sometimes I'm just wasting time spending on, like, spilt milk. Like, I can't sweep that back up and put it in the carton. I just have to, like, I can reflect, but I need to make my thinking, like, more productive, I feel like. So that's what I mean by overthinking. Well,
we talked about that last week because we were talking about nostalgia. When is it good? When does it impair you to be stuck on the past or past decisions? Or things that you've done in the past. I don't know where the stopped up nose came from. Literally just out of nowhere.
Welcome to Abilene.
Yeah, I guess so. What was I saying just now? Oh, when you get stuck on stuff. Yeah. And it is hard to know the cutoff for that when it's important to think about what you did, because I'm a huge believer in, I'm trying not to say this too much because I don't want people to get sick of it, but I'm obsessed with yin and yang right now, and I've been studying the Taoists and their beliefs and everything, and it's pretty freaking intriguing. But they believe, like, you've seen the yin and yang sign, the two serpents, the white and the black, and it's like they don't believe that, like, happiness or I guess I would define it as happiness or brightness per se, complete safety, comfort, and order is ultimate fulfillment. I wrote this down. I'm reading this book called 12 Rules for Life, which I already told you, but I'm reciting for the podcast. By Jordan Peterson. It's fantastic. I highly recommend it. And I wrote as a note, true fulfillment is not happiness, but understanding the balance between order and chaos, which is probably in my own words, my best definition of yin and yang. And so, so they have the white serpent and the black serpent, so they kind of describe it as walking the narrow line between the two, which kind of falls under, even Jordan Peterson talked about it, how it falls under Christianity, which is, narrow is the path to righteousness. But they say you want to have one foot in chaos and one foot in order, so you can take from both. I'm getting into a bigger conversation, but it's like, we get used to order, and order is nice, but it definitely gets perverted and messed up when you have too much of it.
Yeah.
When it kind of topples over on itself with traditions that have become outdated, or, order gets too much when people following orders and staying the same and staying routine when you get into places like, Nazi Germany and stuff like that. And so chaos is good because chaos is the unexplored territory, it's the unknown, and it's scary, but that's where you get everything from, especially as a creator, as an artist. Yeah. That's where you have to go to find things. You have to venture into the unknown, places you've never been, and it's scary, but that's where mystery and adventure are, and just, I don't know, just possibility lies within chaos, and so you have to have an equal balance of the two. So,
like the quote that says, like, life begins at the end of your comfort zone.
Right. And so and you don't want to live in too much chaos, because then life becomes too misunderstandable, and you feel like you can't comprehend anything that's going on.
You're like, who am I? What am I doing?
Yeah. And then you misunderstand meaning, and so I got into a big. I'm sure it's so hard to follow what I'm saying, but. What I was talking about, because you were saying getting stuck on something, and it's almost like punishing yourself. And I'm a huge believer in, living through consequences, because that's important. Like, happiness and sadness are both important. There's a time for both, and they definitely both need to be there. You get happy for too long, that's a bad deal. Boredom is so much worse than boredom, or I could say stillness within an emotion or a state, is so much worse than pain and suffering. I don't think happiness is its own end. I think fulfillment lies between pain and joy. But yeah, I'm so talking in circles. But anyway, so it's like I think that focusing on something you've done bad, it's hard to know where that can be good and where that can be bad, because sometimes you need to, I don't know, sometimes it might be good to kind of be upset at yourself. Just like, why did I do that? I don't like feeling this way. I don't want to feel this way, because if we forget the past, if we just completely forget it, people say you forget the past, you're doomed to repeat it. And so it's almost like, where is it important to forget, and where is it important to remember and to be upset, and to what extent, I guess.
Yeah, and for me, I think it's a little bit more than just like something, if I did it like and I felt bad about it, or if I didn't I felt good about it. Sometimes it's just like stuff that seems silly. Like, was that really the right time for me
Right.
to, like, choose to do the dishes?
Right.
Like, could I have been more productive today if I had chosen to make my bed first? Like, that's
Yeah.
just so silly, and it seems so minute because, like, at that point...
I would think you could do that without being, like, mentally
Yeah,
punishing
yeah.
to yourself.
No,
though.
and exactly.
Just to kind of make yourself
That's
more
what I'm
productive.
saying. I'm not, and I don't, that's what I'm saying, is I'm not punishing myself when I do that, but I'm just, like, I'm thinking about something that's taking up a lot, it seems like a lot of space and time to me, whereas if I had just thought, you know what, like, I'm gonna go do something now, like, I'm going to, like...
I'm listening to you, I'm just being very precise.
No. Like, I'm going to just go be productive,
yeah.
you know, and just do more stuff, because I won't be productive if I just keep sitting here thinking about...
Yeah, it's ironic, because you're wasting
That's
time.
More what I mean.
You're wasting time to be productive instead of being productive right now.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay, so she said don't dwell on the past, you should think about what you did and move on in a positive way. I think
Right, exactly.
I think dwelling is a you know, if you...
It's like living in that space.
It's hard to comprehend exactly what is
for
good and evil, but I certainly think dwelling falls under evil in any circumstance. Dwelling is just, I think, negative. It's stillness. Dwelling is like mental stillness almost.
Yeah.
Staying in one place for too long and getting stuck on it it almost, I would say, always becomes negative.
I would have to disagree.
Okay, where?
Just because...
I can be told...
No, just because, like,
just coming out.
dwelling to me is, like, the place where you live.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, like, so for instance, it's Psalm 27.
Mm-hmm.
And it says, one thing that I ask and that one thing that I would seek, to dwell in the house of the Lord forever and to gaze upon his beauty.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think there are some things, like, you can live in a perpetual state of gratitude.
Mm-hmm.
You can live in a perpetual state of, like, being in the Lord's house while also, like, living your life.
Mm-hmm.
You can dwell in, like, a mindset that, like, keeps you safe.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that dwelling, like, isn't always negative just because of that. Just because it's not bad to necessarily, like, stay in one place. It just depends on what that one thing is.
Okay. So how I'm going to combat that...
So it can be really positive.
Right. How I'm going to combat that is... I'll have to really take this into
I think it's not
terms.
good to be stuck.
Right. But what I would say is, you know, I've kind of stepped out of religion. It's not that I'm not religious per se, but and we've talked about this. I've stepped out of the specifics. And so when you say dwell with the Lord, how I think of God or the divine is love is the best way I have found, at least personally, to describe God or the divine. Because there's a line in a Jars of Clay song, Love Song for a Savior, and there's this one line where it says, "It seems too easy to call you Savior, but not close enough to call you God." And it's like, so as I sit and think of words I can say to show my devotion, and I've thought about it, and I was like, look, when I started like kind of referring to the divine as love, I was like, I feel like that's such the perfect word. Like I found an in between, at least that it feels like for me, like love is just the perfect way in at least for me personally to describe God or the divine. So there's that, and I would say everything has its equal and perfect opposite except for love. The closest thing that love has to an opposite would be nothingness. Be the absence of anything. And nothingness is so abstract you can't even describe it. Nothingness is like, it shouldn't even have a word because there is nothing to be associated with it. So so I think it's funny because, you know, like you should have a balance of happiness and sadness, of joy and pain, of this and this, but love kind of defeats that, I think. And love exists within pain, and love exists within the darkness, but it also exists within the light, happiness. So it's the only thing that transcends all of that. And so love is kind of through everything and through all of it. And so when I talk about dwelling, I talk about it being in one place, like dwelling in some happy thought or some memory, or dwelling in sadness or pain and getting stuck on something. That's what I consider dwelling. Like, you just can't stop thinking about it. But love kind of transcends that. If you're dwelling, I don't know if I would even use the word. This is where the English language fails us. So I don't even know if I would use the word dwelling to describe love. But if I was to use that word, I would say it doesn't work the same, because love is kind of everywhere, and so you can keep from dwelling in any particular place while still, quote unquote, dwelling on or within love. So that's where I would say I think your argument makes sense. But what I'm saying is staying in the same spot, dwelling in the same spot is bad. But love transcends kind of staying in the same spot. Yeah, it says like
dwell in the house of the Lord. And in somebody's house, there's many different things.
Right, and you can go back and forth between order and chaos while still dwelling within love or
So I think you could, like in a house, there's a lot of things you could go back to. A lot of things you could go find. And a lot
so if you consider
spaces you could be living in.
Right, so if you consider the Lord or love a house, like it's the whole house. And so I would say don't dwell, so don't stay in one room. So you can walk from the attic to the basement to the kitchen to another room to another room to the living room, while the whole time you're still staying within this one house.
And I mean in the house of the Lord.
Right.
Like,
right. I was taking you saying the house of the Lord, and I was taking your terms and twisting them to make sense of mine.
Yeah.
I'm insane.
No. So, but going back to your question, like, do I feel comfortable with myself?
Yeah.
I think...
Thank you for keeping structure in the
I think,
bad structure.
Half of the time, yes, and half of the time, no. Half the time, I'm like, you made, like, an okay decision. You're doing all right.
Yeah.
Like, way to go. Like...
Yeah.
And then the rest of the time, like, it's just like, you could be doing so much better. Like, why don't you just grow up? Like, which is normal. I mean, some of those thoughts can kind of be productive if you allow them to go, you know what?
Right.
I didn't do so good, and I would like to do better. So I'm going to grow, and I'm going to figure out the way to, like, do myself better. Like, do myself one better.
It's a good balance.
Like, to kind of one-up myself from that last experience where I wasn't as proud.
Yeah, it's a good balance. I do think it can be helpful. I don't know if this is the right term, but to be mad at yourself sometimes and be like, I need to be better than that. Like, I want to be better than that. And so then other times you can be like, that was good. I'm proud of like who I was today, or like kind of like the route that I took. I'm proud of the vulnerability that I showed today.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know, to dwell on that again would be probably leading into narcissism. But I think we struggle so much with self-hatred that a little narcissism is probably very healthy.
I was going to say, like, it's a little, there's something to being able to say, like, I didn't do that great, but not, like, hit myself over the head with a hammer and go, you know what, I didn't do that great, but sometimes I'm going to mess up, and this is a great moment to, like, move on and go, like, now I know what I don't want to do. Or, like, now I know, like, I need to move on. And next time, like, I can do better because I had this experience. So there's a level of, like, that I think you really need to keep because you have to give yourself, like, the benefit of the doubt.
Well, there's already natural instilled self-hate that we have to that we have to battle with anyways. So trying not to add to that all the time is probably healthy. Yeah. It's funny because I feel like probably a lot of people who aren't into social media or older people who haven't had social media their whole life, when you look at social media, everyone our age is so good at making life look so great. We're so used to putting filters on things. Yeah. And so we can take a picture of what was a shitty day for us, and we can take a picture of it and put it out there with some great caption, and everyone's smiling in the picture. And when you scroll through Instagram, you're like, man, everybody I know is so happy all the time.
And they have so many friends.
Right, but it's not true because we're not happy all the time. And we know that. You talk to people and they're like, yeah, I'm happy a lot. Like, and if you can truly understand, a lot of people, even if they don't admit it, a lot of people deal with self-hatred all the time, but we just don't show that side of us. So we look so utterly narcissistic while for probably the majority of the time we're self-deprecating to ourselves.
We have a really elusive, like, culture.
Yeah, we make things look happy while secretly we're dying inside.
Exactly. And then sometimes you have those, like, really honest posts on Twitter, but they make light of it, and they're talking so hilariously about the fact that they hate themselves, that you're like, oh, like,
it's a joke.
Great.
But there's certainly... Yeah, like, there's certainly an element of truth to every joke, and that's why I always, even if someone's joking, like, so I had a friend that I used to hang out with all the time, and he got a girlfriend who became a good friend of mine, so we would all three hang out a lot, but it was his girlfriend, so, you know, it's kind of, I have to be careful because I have a very open, vulnerable personality, and so I can seem like I'm flirting or I'm trying to make a move when I'm not really. I have no intention of doing that, but I just kind of have a light, kind of, I don't know, this sounds dumb, but floaty way of talking, I guess, sometimes. And I just say silly things and kind of go back and forth. And it can look like I'm flirting sometimes or I'm getting too close. And I certainly had no intention of getting with this girl or stealing this girl from him, but he would make all these jokes like we'd smile or laugh together and be like, okay, that's a little too much, you need to be careful. But obviously he was joking about it. Yeah. And so anytime we said anything or she said anything, he'd be like, I'm joking. Like, obviously I know he's not going to do that. But in my mind, I'm like, you know, there's a certain element of truth to every joke. And I know how I have felt kind of in the past. It's a weird thing because I dated this one girl and my best friend, Trey, was, like, really close to her. And she would, like, ask about him all the time. And, like, there was this little part of me, this jealousy welling up within me, would be part of her, like, I wish she wouldn't do that, but I'm glad she gets along with him, but, like, I don't know, like, I'm just, like, scared about it, because it's part of the self-deprecating thing is, like, I'm not good enough, obviously, so if she figures out that Trey is so much better than me, like, she's not going to want to be with me anymore. But then, the very next girl that I got with didn't dislike Trey, but certainly didn't have really any relationship with him at all. Yeah. And, not that there was anything wrong with that, but I definitely missed it. It was like, I never really hung out with her and Trey at once, so we weren't like a group like me and my last, you know, girlfriend had been. And so it was weird, and I kind of missed that dynamic. And so it's a weird balance, because sometimes I'm like, I really want whoever I'm with to, like my friends and get along with my friends, but not too much, you know. So it's like I don't know. I feel like
grass is always greener.
Yeah,
on the other side.
I feel like I've been there, and I've I don't know. I'm not making any sense probably. One thing I wanted to get into at first, and we ended up like going around it. We were talking about music and how you enjoy music. And I wanted to get into the meaning of music, and of course there can be a million different meanings for a million different people. But I want to get into what music means to you, or what it is for you. Like, is it an escape, or is it like do you feel in touch with reality? I'm just kind of throwing out examples, but what does music in general mean to you? Like the whole idea of music, which is a really big thing to say, you know, really from the first cavemen, like, making a beat on the ground, and then to, you know, Adele singing her new hit single or whatever, and everything in between. So that, and then we can get into more of, like, what creating and writing music means for you, and what it does for you, and what do you think what positive or good impact it would have.
Yeah. Oof. Yeah. I think, just as far as, like, music goes, like, thinking about listening to music and what that's kind of like, I think, I don't know, just feels kind of otherworldly. Mm-hmm. I don't know how that might make sense to anyone, if it does or if it doesn't. Mm-hmm. But it's kind of wild to me that you could express, like, you could capture a feeling that way. Mm-hmm. Like, capture a situation. That's
definitely what, I'm so good at interrupting, but that's definitely what I feel about art in general. It's like, you know, a picture captures a moment in time, but art, it captures an emotion, a feeling that you have that words
like
just don't do.
Yeah, it's like a live action moment.
Right.
It's like, it's not just, if I were to take a picture and show you, because like you said, I might look really happy in that picture.
Yes.
I might sound really happy in this part of the song. but you find out later.
Yeah, emotions are certainly more complex than
right,
time
you'll find
itself.
out later
Right.
that this is the feeling that happened in the end. Like, all that was ruined, or all that was changed, or all that just kind of passed away. And I think it's just really, it's kind of wild, because it's like if you were able
If I was a table,
I say things backwards sometimes, and it's really frustrating. I have dyslexia, but with speaking.
You speak verbal dyslexia.
Yeah, but it's not really like that. It's just I say the word forward, but I say it out of order.
Right.
It's like I'm speaking the Spanish language.
Right.
Like, kind of like hopping between words. But I guess what I'm trying to say is just that you can literally capture a memory, like a feeling, a situation with somebody, or a relationship with somebody, and put it in such a way that somebody like knows what you're saying. They like can feel it inside of themselves. They can hear it. Like, it almost appeals to every like sense, besides probably tasting it. Unless you could even go on to explain something that might even allow somebody to taste what that moment's like. Like when it says in the Civil War song, like, your mouth is poison and your mouth is wine. Like, to taste the bitterness of that love and to taste the sweetness of that love. Like, you might actually capture what that even tasted like to them. And you could even see it, so it's just this really cool thing. I think even sometimes when you're listening to an instrumental thing, you can like get a real sense of what that person was feeling. And it's so strange, because feelings are so abstract, but that's so concrete. When you feel it, and that person's like, yeah, like, you got it. Like, you know how it feels. And you're like, oh my gosh, like, I do. Like, I can feel it in the song. That's so crazy. So, I don't know if that explains what it means to me. It's just like, I don't know. It means, like, actually being able to understand something that I don't know if I would be able to understand.
All of humanity is about connection. We were born to connect and created to feel connection. Yeah. It's like a huge part. I think that's where laughter comes from, is feeling a connection between, like, someone tells a joke and you're like, I get that. It's a connection between me and this person I've never met before. Like I'm thinking of the situation of like a comedian on a stage. Yeah. You're like, man, this person, I get that. Like, I understand it. We're connected to each other. I feel this connection, and then like this physical manifestation of that is me like laughing. Like, I think it's really interesting. Like, the more I understand it, the more I get it. Like, it just kind of comes out of me. I think that's so kind of beautiful about laughter. But I certainly feel that with music, it's connecting because you're showing an emotion. Like, when I feel an emotion, sometimes I really want to share that with people. But if I went up to you, you know, words just don't do that. Like, words just like by definition can't, or not by definition, kind of ironically can't describe, because that's what they were meant to do, is describe. But can't completely describe an emotion. I try to come up to you and like, you should have been there. I felt like this. Yeah. You know, how did you feel? I felt. Yeah. There is no word for it. So you have to kind of take this interesting roundabout way of doing it. So it's funny because there are a lot of art, you can show an emotion with no words, but you know, things like the spoken word, poetry, music, and like, you know, film or novels. Yeah. That is using words, but it's a very roundabout way of doing it, using a narrative, and you take, okay, so there's no specific word for the emotion I felt, but imagine tasting poison and tasting wine. It was bitterness and sweet. And then you're like, okay, I'm starting to like, it's weird. It's like writing code for someone's brain. You know? Yeah,
I think with music and lyrics, like, especially.
It's about creating connection.
Poetry, like, poetry is amazing. But when you add, like, music to poetry, there's something that happens that I feel like allows you to experience something and understand something you wouldn't otherwise experience or understand. Just because the sound paired with the words that you have in your mind to relate to those things, it's just incredible. Because sometimes when somebody's singing and then they just sing like an O or an ah out, you're like, oh, I feel that. Yeah. But that doesn't really make sense, because that's not a word. But you, like, you know, that's not a word, that's not anything, but that emotion that you can hear in someone's, like, voice, that, like, just,
it is
so
crazy
wild.
to me. I took a music appreciation course this last semester, and, you know, we listened to, most of the songs we listened to had no words in them.
Mm-hmm.
And it was so cool. We got like these notebooks, and we would have to, every time we heard a song, we'd have to write down what came to our minds. That's such a good practice. Like, you should literally do that bi-weekly. Like, it's so, I think, important.
It's my favorite pastime.
To try to just translate what wordless music means or what it emotes. And so there was, it was, you know, Madame Butterfly is an opera, and I can't remember what song it was. I have it in my notebook somewhere, but it was one of the songs from Madame Butterfly. I was writing down, and I felt it, like, just immediately, it just came over me, and I just wrote, love. This is love in musical form. This is love. Like, I just feel it. God, it was so freaking pretty, and I had a lot of different interesting stuff I wrote down for it. But that's so crazy, we can just take random sounds from these instruments we created and feel true emotion from just these random sounds, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I could take this guitar and strum, like, 3 random chords, and that could hit somewhere for you. Like, that's so crazy.
Yeah. And with most songs that have, like, music and lyrics, you're entering into, like, a 3-minute experience that, like, I don't think could compare to, like, any other kind of thing that you could get involved with. Like, I just don't think anything else has ever made me feel or be able to understand something so quickly.
Well, it's like art and abstract art. When I'm talking about, well, I guess I'm not talking about paintings. I'm talking about paintings, and then I'm talking about, you know, whatever you would consider physical art or whatever, in the most basic sense of that. And so when you get a painting of something, like if someone painted, you know, whatever, you know, what we have on this video right here, just this room and me and you sitting down, I don't know, you might feel something. You might think, oh, they're just really good at painting because I can tell what that is, or whatever. But then there are paintings like Jackson Pollock, who, for example, you know, I don't even know how he did it. I guess he took a paintbrush and flicked it or whatever. But it's just all these, like, splotches or whatever. But, like, there are certain pieces of Jackson Pollock where I'm like, wow, I can, like, this is literally just, like, I don't even know what the word is for it, but just like a vomit of paint onto this. That was such a crude way to describe it. Onto this canvas, but I legit feel something. Looking at that, like, that's so interesting to think about all this abstract art that you could look at. Like, wow, I really feel something with that. I don't think I have any abstract art in here. Do I? I do not. All right. Well, that doesn't help. But it's so interesting. These random colors and in some kind of. I mean, I guess it's not random because they created it, but as far as I'm concerned, it's random when I look at it. If it doesn't mean anything particularly to me, but immediately when I see it and feel it, this thing that was seemingly random can mean something to me truly, and I can see something that's not necessarily a painting of anything, and I'll be like, man, I want that. I want to have that to look at. Like, that's so beautiful. This connection with art, I think.
Yeah.
I digress. But, yeah. Do you have anything to add? I'm continually interrupt you.
No.
Okay.
I think, that's just the best way I could think of to describe what music is to me is just an experience that I don't think I could get out of anything else, out of any other form of art have I ever experienced something so clearly, so boldly, and felt like, wow, I really, like, somehow I understand exactly what this person went through, even though a lot of times that's transcending, like, the fact that I don't know that person, and the fact that I never will ever be involved with that person's life, besides the song.
Yeah.
In the way that makes me relate to them, or the way that makes me understand them.
Yeah.
And sometimes not relate to them at all, but understand them in such a way that's like, wow, how crazy that you can have a connection with somebody like that.
Yeah. Have you seen?
Finally feel and finally understand what they're saying and what they're thinking and feeling.
Yeah. Have you seen the Mr. Rogers documentary? Won't You Be My Neighbor?
No, I need to.
Well, I have it if you want to borrow it. But
I I had that song stuck in my head, the one he sings at the end. Such a good feeling.
Yeah.
Very good feeling. I was like, what the
I
heck?
love
Where did
Mr.
this
Rogers.
come from?
Well, here's the
It was just
weirdest
random
thing
the other
about,
day.
okay, so literally throughout most of my life, there was a small time in middle school where I was like, I'm going to get some Jesus tattoo or something, but quickly that
Yeah,
changed.
yeah.
Well, just because my older brother had gotten a cross on his back, and my dad got like the lion and the lamb on his
It's cool.
arm, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna
I
get
like
some.
Jesus tattoos.
Yeah, I'm gonna get some Jesus
They're cool.
tattoos. Like my idea was I was gonna get Yeshua, which is Jesus in Hebrew right here.
Yeah.
But that idea died at some point, and I had this thought about being an actor, and if I'm gonna be an actor, I don't want to have tattoos because then they'd have to worry about covering it up during.
Doesn't Justin Bieber have Yeshua on his arm?
I don't know.
Sorry, that was so random.
No, it's okay. I don't know
I
anything about
swear
Justin
he
Bieber's
does in
tattoos.
Hebrew. Or at least something like
I would imagine a lot of people do. It's a
Yeah.
pretty basic idea. It takes like 5 minutes of thought, not to shit on Justin Bieber or anything. What was I saying? Oh yeah, so that idea died quickly. I mean, for like a few months in like 6th grade or maybe even 5th grade.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, I could get a Jesus tattoo, but then that died. And for most of the time, I thought I would never get a tattoo. Not because I had anything against tattoos, but because I just thought it would be easier not to have one, and then I don't have.
Big commitment.
Yeah, and then I don't have to worry about anybody prejudging me for some job interview, or if I was my huge fear, my
Right.
fantasy of fears was that I would be at an audition and there would be a guy that was equally perfect for this role. And they're like, man, there's no way to decide. Oh, but he's got a tattoo, and we'd have to spend like 0.5 cents, covering it up with makeup. So I guess we'll just go with this other guy. Like, rats. But like, when is that opportunity going to happen? So literally, I never thought I'd get a tattoo until this summer. I went with a friend of mine and saw that Mr. Rogers documentary. Never watched Mr. Rogers as a kid. I knew who he
Gosh,
was.
that's so sad.
Yeah, I knew who he was. I'd heard of him.
Yeah.
I didn't know much about his show. I knew that he was the guy who always wore a cardigan, and there were like a bunch of memes based on him or whatever.
Oh
but
my
I didn't know
gosh.
really anything about him. I didn't even know
That's
that there was
crazy.
this huge puppet part of his show. Like I didn't even
Yeah.
know that. So I'm watching the documentary, and I'm just falling in love with this man. I'm like, this is the most
Easy to do.
beautiful, the most beautiful human being I've ever experienced. And God, I was just falling in love with him. And then, so I ended up getting this tattoo. This is the only tattoo I have so far.
Yeah.
And it's Mr. Rogers. It's like his number, I guess. And Meow Meow Kitty made a little plaque of it, and this is what the plaque looks like.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of looks like a door sign for like an address or
Like
whatever.
his house
This is,
number.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it says 143, and 1 is the number of letters in the word I, 4 is LOVE, and 3 is YOU. And it's kind of like a reminder to love yourself and love your neighbor, but also just love in general. Like,
Yeah.
I love love. Love is amazing, transcendent, and within everything. And so it's a beautiful thing to think about as often as possible.
Yeah, for sure.
And it was kind of also just an ode and an homage to Mr. Rogers himself, just this beautiful man that legit at the end of the thing, I was like I knew that he was dead, but, I didn't know much about him, and so, you kind of forget that when you're watching this documentary. Then at the end, they, talked about when he died, and I was like, I'm never going to be able to meet this guy. Like, how sad, but it is crazy.
Watched his TV show.
Right. It is crazy that I was able to have this true connection. Like,
Yeah, for sure.
like, Mr. Rogers, as far as I know, didn't know me or that I was going to get some tattoo
Right.
based off of something that he created.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until years after he died that I was even affected by him, but so affected to permanently ink my skin.
Yeah.
And not even that. I'm not somebody who gets tattoos.
Yeah,
Like, it was something that overrides my thoughts to not get a tattoo. And I was like, I don't care. I'll figure it out. So I got it where my watch goes, so if I need to, I can cover it up with my watch. But it's like, I was like, I want this to be, like, a part of me, and I want to be able to take that with me and feel that connection.
Yeah.
And so he's just a great guy, man. And I think it's so cool when people ask me about it. They'll say, like, oh, what's your tattoo mean? I'll be like, oh, it's Mr. And so I say it quickly. I don't know if this is necessarily true. I say it's Mr. Rogers' address because that's a quick way to describe it. because it's like his number. I don't know if it's like his address in the show or whatever, but it's just a quick way to describe it. It looks like an address plaque, and has that meaning to it. But whenever people hear Mr. Rogers, I'm like, I got a Mr. Rogers tattoo, which I think is funny. When I first got it, my uncle was like, well, don't be telling people in prison, if you ever get into prison, that's a Mr. Rogers tattoo, because you probably won't make it very far. I'd be like, 143 is the number of people who don't mess with me. I don't know. But
it's my troop number.
Yeah. I'm a super G. Don't even worry about it. I'd be like, yeah, Meow Meow Kitty made this plaque. Nah, I'd make it a day.
Oh.
But I tell people that because I think they don't expect it when they see a tattoo to hear Mr. Rogers. I'm like, yeah, it's Mr. Rogers' address. And I see this reaction from people who he's had an effect on.
Yeah.
I'd be like, oh my god, I love Mr. Rogers. Like, just this, like, sweet reaction. I've had super, like, you know, kind of macho, masculine guys will be like, dude, what's that tattoo? And I'm like, Mr. Rogers' address. And they immediately melt. And they're like, oh my god, I love Mr. Rogers.
Yeah.
It's this beautiful kind of connection that I can see on people's faces. And so it's really cool to feel like I'm part of that. I think love is connection and feeling connection, and it's like we're all drifting towards each other. Like we're all going to be a part of each other one day, and it's like cool to like feel that connection.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So, anyways, when you say like I kind of went off on something. You were saying feeling connection with people that you don't even know, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's how I went into it. It is cool. It is cool, like what art kind of does, feeling connection with people you don't know. Do you have anything to add? Because I have another question for you.
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
My next question, I think I already prefaced it, but more going into what does writing music do for you, and what does it kind of like mean to you, and what do you think it kind of contributes?
Yeah, so it's really funny. I was talking to my sister last night about this song that I wrote, and I told her, I said, I needed to heal, and I was ready to heal, so I wrote this song.
You said what?
I needed to heal.
Needed to heal.
And I was ready to heal.
Yeah.
And so I wrote this song.
Right.
So I think a lot of times music is really like healing for me.
Mm-hmm.
Or, I mean, in any case, it's healing.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I'm not even necessarily hurt by something, but there can be a level of like confusion that comes, and then maybe I'm hurt, like in that kind of sense where you're just like, oh, I like need to know why I feel this way.
Yeah.
And so just writing, being able to like get that out in sounds and like just express it somehow, I think is just very productive for me.
It's like verbal processing, but through
art. Exactly. And for me, it's a lot easier to do it without so many words, because I could go on and I could get, I could draw myself out in circles. But I think when I try to go, let's condense this and think, how would this sound?
Right.
And how would this feel? And I don't even have to think about it, to be honest. I just sat down with my guitar and start playing, and I'm like, wow, I can feel this. And before I even know it, like I'm singing something about my life or something that I've seen, and just kind of creating something that expresses a way that I felt or expresses a thought about something and feelings I have related to that. So for me, writing is like really healing, and I think really sometimes even somewhere I can grow from. Like when you try to write about something, you kind of have to zoom out and get not just the subjective view, but the objective view, where you're going, okay, if all this was just deranged and I was outside of myself and I was trying to portray this to somebody else, like how would I say that? How would I get them to understand, like where I was coming from in this and where I was coming from in that? It's just kind of, I don't know, broadens my view a lot. It's like, okay, it's not as, like this as I thought, like zoomed in.
Yeah.
It's a lot more than that, or
it's
a lot
interesting.
less than that, even when you blow it out. Sometimes you're like, oh, it's a lot less than I thought.
It's interesting how
like, oh, it's huge.
How therapeutic. I mean, I definitely feel what you're. I'm definitely connecting with you right now talking about this, but I did not expect you to kind of go into that. Certainly not first when I asked you that question. I guess what I anticipated you to talk about was yeah, I like to share my emotions and connections, and I definitely feel
I definitely do.
Yes, but I really do understand what you're saying. It's very therapeutic to create art.
Yeah, because I don't think at first I conceive someone else being able to understand that so well. Like when I'm writing it, most of the time it's really selfish. Like it's really just because, like I said, I need to heal.
Yeah, but I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
No, and it's not. No, and it becomes something that's really connected. Something that really maybe even helps the people you're writing about, or helps people around you understand you better. Which is just extremely, to me though, it's still extremely humbling that you could write something that somebody could understand you better for, or somebody could relate to, or somebody could feel so strongly about, go like, that song, like, that is exactly how I feel. Like,
it is cool when you write something about a very specific scenario to you, and someone hears that and goes, man, that really hit home for something that I was dealing with. And it's like
I wrote this song.
Wow, that was so specific to me. How could you possibly?
Right, like I wrote this song about, and I actually wrote it with my little sister. But I wrote this song, I started writing it after I hung out with my boyfriend, and I was sitting there with him, and I was just like, there's so many like thoughts and feelings on my mind, like that was just such a nice time to sit with them. And I started writing this song, and I don't even know why, but my first thought was, see the baby birds take flight.
Yeah.
And it was just like life around me. Like I just had to start expressing life around me.
See, that's what I say.
So I just started like throwing out lines about that.
Yeah.
And my little sister kind of started adding just lines about what you see around you and trying to help me like rhyme them and put them together.
What is the song called?
It's called I Can't Take My Eyes Off You.
Okay.
So the chorus just goes, I can't take my eyes off you when you're laughing, you when you're looking at me, when you're smiling, making the most of this moment with me. And I wrote that song, and my older sister heard it, and she started crying, like bawling her eyes out.
Yeah.
And I was like, what's going on? And she was like, I like feel like that, because she was, at the time, she had just kind of fallen in love with her now husband.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure they were close to getting engaged or had just gotten engaged. And she was just like weeping.
Yeah.
And I remember at some point in time, we played that song again, and she kind of dedicated a night.
Weeping is a good word. That is not used enough. God, that's a good word.
She was kind of dedicating a night that we were doing covers and all that to him. So she was singing all these songs that remind her of him and all this stuff, and we had done arranged all these covers basically just to dedicate the night to him and to their relationship. And so it was a really beautiful night, and she asked me to play that song.
Yeah.
Which was like, wow, crazy. And so we played it, and he decided he wanted it on his engagement like video, how he was going to propose to her. So he went to like all these spots where they had hung out and where he had started falling in love with her, and kind of did a little bit of interviews with people. Just about their relationship, and it was really sweet. And at the end, it was like, if you could ask Taylor one question, what would it be? And so then the video cuts out, and she turns around, and he's on his knee. But he asked me, like, can I have the audio file for that song? And then I ended up playing that song for their first dance at their wedding. And it was just this incredibly like surreal thing, because I'm sitting here going like, this is my like one little thing about a moment in time where I just realized how beautiful this situation that I fallen into was, the person I was sitting next to, and the life that I was sharing with them.
Well, it's cool because you wrote that for someone specific, but someone completely separate was able to feel a connection with someone else completely separate.
Yeah, and
based off the same words that you wrote for someone.
Yeah, and it moved them so deeply. Like that's now on a plaque that like hangs in their house.
Yeah, see, that's love. Like that's this connection that we inevitably feel. Yeah. Like we're so good at creating connection.
So wild.
It's really interesting. I think it's cool how you're talking about the birds taking flight and stuff, because that feels like that's what I mean when I say that love isn't everything and you can kind of experience love and stuff, because like I would describe a situation like there's so little to know about plants, and I don't know if I got into this last time, but or not so little, so much to know about plants,
Mm-hmm.
and it's so hard for us to know about them. But a few seconds ago, I don't see a comment. Liar. No, but like, so I mean, I'm gonna sound insane here, but there are some people, that argue that plants could have consciousness or whatever. But a big argument I hear for it is, when people take mushrooms, they feel something and they feel a connection to someone else going on, and sometimes they can, like, I don't know, experience things like different voices or stuff that they would never, and they say, I'm totally butchering this argument, but they say, like, that is, possibly whatever that plant is, like, that's me having this connection with a plant or whatever. And I would say it's hard to know, and
Yeah, because we create our own realities all the time within this.
right.
Like, you could think up a circumstance and a person and a thing.
Right, but I think we have such a little grasp, such a small grasp on consciousness anyways, that I do think it is a little arrogant to totally blow that out of the water and say, well, that's ridiculous, it's not possible, I think, I do think it's out there,
Yeah.
We definitely don't talk about it a lot, but, I mean, I was thinking about it the other day, like, it's possible plants have just as much consciousness as, worms or I mean, even just animals in general, because I would say I don't think animals are self-conscious. I don't think they, like, are aware of their consciousness, if that makes sense. Like, I feel like animals are like Adam and Eve before they partook of the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil. I feel like an animal doesn't really know when it's done something good or bad. It knows based off of our reactions if it's done something that it's going to get a bad reaction to, but that's instinctual, that's kind of survival. It figures out slowly, if I do this, the person who takes care of me is going to be upset, and that will ultimately not be good for me, so objectively I should know not to do that. But I don't know that they're conscious of themselves. Does that make sense?
So hard.
There's no way to know. This is total theory.
There's a lot of people who've done a lot of research on it. And
Right, but there's no way to truly know.
Yeah, there's books I would love to read about, like, the relationship between humans and dogs and what that really looks like and what the science behind that is. But yeah, I think there's a lot of things that are just hard for us to understand because we didn't create them. We did not, like, create plants.
Well, I don't know about plants and consciousness, but but I certainly feel like plants are facets for love, and we can experience love with and through plants. And I know that sounds bananas, but if I describe a scenario to you, like, imagine this beautiful meadow and this large outstretch of grass, this beautiful St. Augustine grass, very specific for me because that's my favorite grass. But you go out and you lie in that field and it's just beautiful and you just take it all in, like, that's love. Like, you're alone with these plants, but you're feeling love. Like, you can look at a beautiful tree when its leaves turn red in the fall and be like, God, you just feel something. Like, that's love, this connection to, I don't know, like, we say an inanimate object, but it changes, it moves, it grows, it is alive, we know that.
Yeah.
So
I think I have love for those things. Like, I definitely relate to what you're saying.
Yeah, you can experience love with all these little things.
Like, for me, it's not just, like, being in love with that leaf. It's like, it goes a little bit deeper. It's like, I know someone created that, and they created that with me in mind, like, knowing I would enjoy it. So for me, it drives me back to what I believe is God and what I believe who created
Right,
me.
but that still works when you're thinking about love. You say, like, who created that, but that comes to the connection. You're feeling this connection, and the connection, the word for that connection is God, That is the divine. That's the spark of divinity in you and it.
What I'm saying is I'm not in love with the plant. I'm in love with the thing that created the plant, because that thing loves me enough to create something beautiful for me.
Right, but it's still experiencing love with this plant, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I guess I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
You're kind of taking a step back, but I think there's something beyond that. I do agree with what you're saying, where you can look at it and be like, man, this was creative, man, that's so amazing, and I definitely have felt that, but But I think there is another thing, if you don't think about it like that, there is another thing where you can legitimately just feel something. Like just looking at nature or just being in nature.
Oh yeah, like I definitely feel and I have a response. I think
Yeah.
it just draws me back to something else.
Yeah, you
So it's
can
not just
go
that
to that, and I do see that, and that's beautiful in and
Yeah,
of
it's
itself.
not just that one experience.
But I
it's
do
something
think
that
there is a
goes-
real connection to be felt with nature. Like I love going on walks. Like, and I'm not a huge like being by myself guy. I think we were created to interact with others and feel connection. That's a big part of life. Is others, and so I don't like being alone a lot. I certainly wouldn't describe myself as an introvert, but I do like going on walks alone, and like sometimes I'll listen to music when I'm going on a walk, but sometimes I won't. Sometimes I'll just walk around for like a few hours, and it's just nice to just take in the world and just enjoy what's going on around me.
Yeah.
Like from all the like fast-paced, busy stuff we do from day to day, it's really nice to be able to just enjoy the world around me, and I feel like that's love, and that's me experiencing love with things that you wouldn't normally consider love. Okay, so I'm gonna read you a poem I wrote the other day. It's short, but it's about plants and love, and I'll get into kind of not an argument, but a discussion that I had with someone when I read this poem the other day. So I was reading my book 12 Rules 12 Rules for Life. I was in Mason, Texas, because I was about to go get a friend from San Antonio, and so it's this small town in the middle of Texas, and I'm sitting on this the top of this thing called Fort Mason, and so it like overlooks all of Mason. It's just beautiful. There's trees everywhere, and it's on this big hill. And so I'm sitting on the edge of it reading this book, and I had this little notebook to take notes for the book. And I just feel so inspired. There's this, so it's like, okay, so it's a hill, but there's like been almost walled off with like this little stone edge to keep the fort on flat ground. And so there's a small patch of grass that's like rounded off with this stone. And there's a tree growing on the edge of that. And so it's like the side of it, its roots, I assume, hit that stone or whatever, and the rest of it is coming this way. It's hard to explain. I'll show you a picture. And so I was just sitting there, and I just looked at this tree, and I just like felt something with this tree. Like I was feeling, and it's dead right now. It's winter, but I legitimately just had this feeling, and I felt like this tree gave me this poem. I was like it like taught me a lesson. Like I was just sitting there, and it taught me something, and I was like, oh my god, I have to write this down. And I just like wrote it down, and I was like, oh my god. So I'm going to read it to you, and then I'm going to try to unpack it. This is not like a poetry reading. I'm just dissecting words, I guess. It's called Roots. Listen to the garden once in a while. There's something to learn from the plants. It's important to take root. Find somewhere. First call it home, then make it so. We were built like the plants, to take root, to find love, to make home. With every day of geographical stillness, our love grows deeper and deeper into the ground. Longer stillness ensures greater heartbreak upon departure, and while sometimes necessary, take heed. Choose wisely. Roots are important. So build a garden and call it home. So that's it. And this is the picture of the little tree. See, it's like got like a bunch of dead branches on it, and there's like a little patch of grass right here that's like not growing in, like it's just dirt right here, and there's grass around it. Like very imperfect. And then here's the little stone, so it's like, you think about when that was planted or whenever it started growing, it's like, it was probably risky, you know, like thinking about where it was planted, like it's on the edge of this, maybe the roots are going to hit that stone, it could break the stone, or it could, I don't know.
Sorry.
No, you're good. It could fuck up the roots or something, and you just like don't know. But I don't know, it's huge. I don't feel like I really captured it in this, but it's a huge tree. So, you know, it's got to be super old. I'm certainly older than me. And it was kind of like, it's interesting when I could describe myself as a nomad. I think I might. I certainly have been described like that in the past. But I've never in my life lived in one place for longer than 2 years. I've moved around a lot. I've lived here, Phoenix, Mason, Wimberley, And then in singular houses, even when I've lived in Abilene or Mason or Phoenix, you know, going back and forth between houses, like I've never been in one place very long.
Yeah.
And I'm so used to moving around. The first day I got my license, I drove it wasn't the first day, it was like 2 days later. I drove, you know, a 2-hour trip by myself to go back to Mason.
Yeah.
I'm very used to driving by myself kind of everywhere. I'm a traveler and I like going places. It's very nomadic, but I don't feel really at home anywhere. Like, nothing, because I've never been in one place for very long. It's like my roots have never had time to really develop. Yeah. And so I don't feel anywhere particularly as home. Yeah. The most place I would say is here, because I was born here, I have family here, and I kind of know a lot of people. Like when I go to Monk's, the coffee shop, there's hardly ever a time where I'll walk in and not recognize anybody, because I know so many people. Yeah. And so I would say I feel like this is the most home place that there is for me, but I still feel like I haven't stayed here long enough that I don't have deep enough roots. And I feel like I've worried about it. Like I grew up wanting to go to LA because that's the movie place and I want to make movies. Right. And then part of me, it was like a year ago or something, because I decided I wanted to go to college in Austin and go to UT. Yeah. And so then I was like, well, I could stay in Texas for a while. And then I legitimately watched this documentary. It's like a 10-minute documentary on YouTube about the last Blockbuster video in the rental store, the movie rental store, in I think it said America, but I think the last Blockbuster video in the world, because the franchise died, is in Bend, Oregon. And I watched this whole documentary and talked a lot about Bend, and then I just watched a documentary on Bend because I fell in love with this place. It's a very movie-oriented town. They have a bunch of film festivals there every year. Wow. They have that. They're the reason the Blockbuster Video is still there is because they love movies so much. They're just such a movie community, and they're very close to a lot of people. It's basically the size of Abilene, so it's not a big city, but it's not a like tiny baby town or whatever. There's enough around there to you know live, and they like love the people there. They love the people that own the store, and they were like, why would we close? Like people still buy from us, and we have fun. Yeah. Like getting new movies and talking to people who come in. Like it's a nice interaction. And my dream, so that I have that painting over there of that theater with the thing on top, my ultimate goal in life is to own a theater and have an apartment on top of it. Right. And so I'll live in the apartment on top and it'll be open on weekends and I'll show movies and I'll run it with, you know, whoever I'm living my life with. Yeah. And that's just my ultimate goal, to just own this whole theater. And in Bend, there are multiple theaters downtown that are just owned by these old guys who just love movies. And they're just these super fancy, like super cool theaters. And I don't know, they're like interview these guys and they're just like guys that I want to be and guys that I want to know. Like it's such a cool town. And it's basically the Abilene of Oregon, because we're 3 hours from Dallas, this huge city for anything, and they're 3 hours from Portland, this huge city for anything. So if I really needed anything, I really need to go to the big cities, just 3 hours away. Yeah. And so there was a time where I was like, I really want to live in Bend, and I felt a connection to that place that I've never been more than I felt a connection to anywhere. Yeah. Because there was a time where I thought about maybe I could live in Phoenix because I used to be there and I love that place, but I really feel something with Bend, Oregon. I don't know why. And I don't know anybody there. Yeah. But it was like I kept getting this image in my head when I was writing that poem. And I worry about where I want to go because what's perfect for me. Mm-hmm. You know, like I don't want to go here because bad things could happen. Like it's not LA, so like what if I need to be in LA for some reason or whatever. Mm-hmm. And it was like that tree taught me a lesson. It was like looking at that tree, it was like there could have been all those questions, like, oh, we're putting this tree right next to this little stone thing. Like, what if it F's up the roots or something like that? Yeah. And, like, there's, like patches of grass that aren't growing. Right. Like, you know, maybe this isn't perfect, but I just didn't worry about it. Yeah. And then put it there, and it's grown into this big, beautiful tree.
For sure.
And it's done well, it seems.
Yeah.
And it overlooks the city of Mason. Like, it's just so, I don't know, wonderful. And I was just like, it just like taught me, I just like need to not worry so much about where I'm going to go, because as long as we find somewhere, we have this beautiful ability to make that place home and to take root. And it's really important. I think it's important to have a place called home. And I'm super speaking out of my butt because I've never had a place called home, truly. So I don't feel like I really comprehend that. But I want to. And so I was like, I want to move to Oregon. That was like what I got out of that. I don't know. It was a very beautiful experience I had, and ultimately I'm gonna try to move to Oregon. It's more of a personal conversation than a podcast conversation. But because I know all these people want to know about me moving to Oregon. But it was this random connection that I felt with this seemingly random place, looking at this tree. Like, it's just like, it's too much evidence to me to believe that this is all by happenstance. It's like, we are all connected. We have to be.
Oh, yeah.
I, in Mason, Texas, this tiny town, sitting on this random place, looked at this random tree and started thinking about Bend, Oregon, this place that I've never been, that I saw like one YouTube video about. Like, everything is connected. And I don't know, it was very interesting and very beautiful. But the conversation I had, I showed that to my younger sister, and she, I see we're built like the plants to take root, to make love, or to find love. I don't know if I said make love, but
Just kidding.
because plants are mainly asexual, I think. What did I say? To take root, to find love, to make home.
Yeah.
Okay. And they were like, plants don't love. My younger sister was like, plants don't love or feel love. And I was like, well, we don't know that. I was like, I don't know. I certainly feel love with plants a lot, I think. I dated this girl very shortly that was super in love with plants. And I'd always felt kind of a connection with them, but I hadn't really done any research into it. And I had lots of conversations with her about it.
Yeah.
Like, plant psychology, I think, is a lot that she was talking about. But it's really interesting. It's a mainly unexplored part of I don't know, consciousness or love, I think. People don't think about that when you think of love or experiencing love. Plants, I don't think, is the first place that your mind goes. When I say, like, yeah, I felt love with like this tree, it's like, you what? It's like, well, I was just looking at it, but it was beautiful. It was beautiful, and I felt this connection with this seemingly inanimate plant, Yeah. But I don't know. I'm kind of speaking in circles, and I've gone too far. What were we even talking about that we got into that? We were talking about the meaning of art. Okay, I want to say one thing. I'm so sorry, I'm talking forever. But art, I think, is bigger as far as creating a connection and experiencing that. God, I can't speak. Experiencing something through creating something.
For sure.
I think more things are art than we socially consider art. So I think a lot more people are artists than they know.
Yeah.
Like, some people are electricians, and they can experience kind of, like, they can do this, and it feels like they can process stuff while working with these, electronics or whatever. Like, I had a math teacher, or I guess an algebra teacher, and I asked her one time, I was like, why do you, like, she seemed like a very stressed person. And she didn't like music. I didn't understand that. She was like, I don't like listening to music. And I was like, how do you not like listening to music?
Yeah.
But I was like, why do you like math? You seem like the kind of person who wouldn't. And she was like, it relaxes me. I feel good to know that there is a solution to every problem. Like, it makes me feel good. And so I can find it. Like, no matter what, like, if it's super hard, doesn't matter, I will be able to find, there is a solution, and I can find it.
Wow. And
I was like, that's kind of really cool. She can experience kind of art through that way. She feels connection to just knowing that there is a solution, and no matter, like,
it's crazy.
As long as you try hard enough, you will eventually get to a solution. So there are a lot of things, like, there are people at desk jobs who experience art in what they do. And so I think it's just interesting because a lot of people don't think of themselves as creative or artists, but we're all creative and we're all artists in our own small ways. It's just what we consider art, what society is deemed as art per
Yeah.
se, is more, you know, writing and painting and making music and stuff like that. But I definitely know what you're saying about writing out something and processing it, because I wrote a poem about this breakup that I went through, and it was super overdramatic and ridiculous. The first line was, "I'm bleeding." It was just like so ridiculous.
Yeah.
And but I really felt that, and I wrote it out, and I'm super like dramatic writing it. But then afterwards, I look at it, like I can come back to it a day later and be like, "Wow, that was overdramatic."
Right.
And be like, "Wow, it's crazy that I was truly in that place and I felt that." And it's almost me being able to step back
Right.
and find a balance between the overdramatic and the underdramatic, I guess.
Yeah.
But no, a lot of times I feel like I can write something out and understand it better.
Yeah.
And for me, I mean, for you, I write songs sometimes, not very often, but
Yeah.
for you, I imagine it's nicer to be able to find something that kind of flows together and rhymes. But for me, I like there's less rules per se with poetry, and so I can just write it, and I can just write down what I'm thinking, and then I try to create some kind of flow to it. But
I do a little bit of that too.
Yeah.
And I think recently my songwriting has fallen under a little less like what you would expect.
Do you sometimes just write lyrics and then try to put music to it?
Yeah, sometimes. If I'm really like feeling some sort of lyrics, usually I have like a riff or something in mind. Because I kind of have a log of riffs I've just started and thought that would be a good song. And then sometimes I'll be writing something just off the top of my head or off the top of my heart, I guess. And just be kind of, I don't know, just kind of...
It's not funny, it's cool.
I don't know, just kind of sorting some thoughts, and I'll write something that's kind of like poetry or something that's kind of like lyrics, and decide, you know what, that would go really well with that riff I was writing the other day. So, I don't know, for me it's not one specific thing. Sometimes they go together as well. Like sometimes I'm like, oh my goodness, this sound goes exactly with this feeling, or I'm going to start singing right as I start playing, and this is just going to come out. And that happens too. So it's funny because I feel like when I compare myself to some artists that I've heard of, they're like, yeah, it happens for me. Like, I just sit down and I play some chords, and then, you know, I write it down, and then later I find that. And they usually say there's like a lot of people I've heard at least have said there's like one recurring thing, but I feel really weird because I'm like, it never happens the same way twice most of the time. I'm sure it's the same for them, but just like, and never lyrics come first or music comes first. That's usually not.
I know for when I'm writing, I always think my songs sound better when they're put to music that they weren't written for. For example, the first song I ever wrote, I don't think sounded awful. I think it was repetitive. You remember "Won't You Let Me Love You" or whatever?
That was the first song you ever wrote?
Well, I mean, I guess the first song I ever wrote was this one I wrote with my friend Cole, which was, it was a theme song for my movie, Dino Boy, and it was Dino Boy Germain, he's the king of the sky.
Dino Boy!
Yeah. That was a silly song, though. The first, like, what I considered serious was in 6th grade, you know, the serious times of life. "Won't You Let Me Love You." It was basically this girl I had a crush on, and I told her, and she was like, I don't like you that way, if you want to not talk to me anymore. So dramatically I had to be like, "Won't you let me like you secretly?" Like, so that was the song. But I wrote it because I didn't know how to play guitar yet. I learned guitar, I think, in 7th or 8th grade. So I didn't know how to play yet, and so I just kind of wrote the lyrics to it. And then,
still on YouTube, right?
Yes, yes,
Everybody
it is.
go check it out.
Oh my god! But I'm not telling anyone where to find it. But if you write "Won't You Let Me Love You," it's one word. It's one word. "Won't You Let Me Love You?" And I think if you write,
you just told everyone where to find it.
Right. I don't know.
Good job.
Whatever. But secretly, I want them to see it. But
right. Exactly.
But Cole was working on something because he didn't write lyrics, but he writes music, and so he was doing this kind of riff thing where he had his few chords and a riff that goes with it. And he was like, "Yeah, I've been working on this," and I was like, "Oh, well, I just wrote lyrics." And he was like, "Well, let's try them together. Like separately, we've done this," which is, I don't know if that's a productive way to write a song, but we did it.
It is actually.
It sounded pretty okay. I was like, oh, that's cool. It sounds really well, because I had to change the way that because I did sing the lyrics when I wrote them. I sung them a certain way, but they weren't to a particular instrument. It was just a cappella. And so I had to change the way that I sang them, forming to, like, kind of coiling around this music almost.
Yeah.
It was like a dry fit shirt. It was like, you know, getting on it. And
For sure.
I wrote this last song I wrote, skipping to now from first to last. I wrote it on guitar with these certain chords, and I liked the lyrics, but I just felt like it felt really overdramatic and weird, and like some old, like a later Johnny Cash song almost. It felt like one of those, like, you know, like Hurt or whatever, like when he was just after June died, and just really depressing. And I was like, I don't feel like I can pull it off. That's not me. And so I grabbed my ukulele and just kind of chose 2 random chords and went with it. And I just went back and forth, and I just sang my lyrics to those chords. And I was like, this sounds way better. And so now that's the way it is. And it was interesting because it wasn't the lyrics weren't written for that. And it's almost like I don't know, rules or kind of readjustment can be good. It's like forcing structure on something. Because initially I wrote the chords kind of to go with the lyrics, and then I had to form to this other structure, and I had to cut off what wasn't necessary and kind of make it fit this. And I think that's good. I think it's good to do that. I don't even know what I'm talking about. I did think it was cool. We were talking yesterday when we were talking about this podcast and being in this podcast, and we were talking about music. And I was saying how I recently truly found out what Tearing My Heart is. And Tearing My Heart by 21 Pilots, for reference. And I used to love 21 Pilots. Like, I still like them, but I used to listen to them all the time. And, what was it? So it's, the music video, as I remember it, I saw it, you know, whenever it came out, it was like freshman or sophomore year. And they were playing the song, and then it cuts back to Tyler Joseph, the lead singer, is on a date with this girl, and suddenly I think she, like, throws the table, and then starts, like, brutally, like, she punches him in the face, and she starts beating the shit out of him. And he's, like, bleeding out of his nose and his mouth, and he's still, like, smiling. And then I think at one point, like, while he's bleeding out of his nose and mouth, she just, like, looks at him and then starts making out with him. And then again pushes him away, and then starts, like, beating him, and then walking away from him, but he keeps following her, like. And I was like, I don't know what that's about. I guess that's random. Because, you know, sometimes, like, people have these random ideas for music videos when they think they're cool and they just go for it. I was like, I guess that doesn't really mean anything.
Like blank space.
Right.
Taylor Swift.
I was like, I guess that doesn't really mean anything.
Yeah.
And so, that was, you know, years ago. And I recently had this very short-lived kind of relationship, I guess you would call it, with this girl. And it wasn't healthy at all. It was back and forth and back and forth. And, at first, like, it was like she liked me, and then she did. It's actually what the song was about.
Right.
But it was like she liked me, and then she didn't like me, and then she liked me, and then she wanted me to hang out, and then she didn't, and then she did. And it was very back and forth for me, and it was very harmful to me.
Yeah. Because
it was so confusing. It was like, so, okay, she likes me. She wants me to be there. Like, oh, she's got some random excuse. Oh, she wants to hang out with me, but she just can't. And, like, I'm trying to convince myself that everything's okay, but it's like, I was in the shower and I literally just understood what the music video was about and what the song was about. And, like, it was just like, she liked him, and then she'd, like, punch him in the face, and he'd, like, it hurt him at first, and then he'd kind of smile, and then she'd, like, make out with him, and he was like, oh, okay, and then she'd go back to beating him, and it was just like, oh my god, I get it. Like, it's just like this kind of crazy back and forth, and I feel like I've experienced it now, so I can understand it. And it makes, like, the lyrics mean so much more to me now. It's, you know, sometimes you've got to bleed to know that you're alive and have a soul. And it's like, I think that makes sense. And that's the yin, to the yin and yang, or whatever. So it's like, you need to go through both and experience order and chaos. So it's good that I went through something like that, because it's like, I needed to bleed to more understand, like, because we live by contrast, you know. You need to feel sad, because then you can feel truly happy. You need to feel pain, so then you can feel joy, if that makes sense. You need to bleed to be able to feel love. It's contrast, you know. It's balance. So it's funny, you know, he wrote that forever ago, probably about a very specific point in his life. Or, you know, sometimes I noticed John Bellion. Do you ever listen to him?
Sometimes.
So I fell in love with the song All Time Low, and
Oh my
I saw,
gosh, yeah.
yeah, there's this doc, like, he does these baby docs on YouTube. They're like 10 minutes long, where he'll show how he wrote a song. He wrote that song in like, I think it was like a day or two, and it was literally just like him in the studio being like, I want to write a song, and it wasn't about anything specific. He just started writing lyrics, and they just sounded good together. And that ruined the song for me. I was like, because I thought that there was some really serious thing that happened in his life that he wrote about. No, it's just lyrics he came up with. It just ruined me. But, so some people write...
I love how music does that.
Right, but some people write like that. And so maybe Tyler Joseph wrote it like that. Where it didn't even have to do with the situation. He just kind of wrote it. And years later, after I had heard this, like, I felt this connection with a song I haven't even listened to in quite a while. And it was, it's really interesting how connection comes. I'm just over talking. What are your thoughts on that? And like meaning inhabiting itself, especially later.
Yeah. I think sometimes you come back to stuff and really realize what something meant.
I'll give you a more specific question.
Yeah.
Do you ever find meaning in your own songs hiding out that you didn't intend? Okay, that you didn't intend, and you, like later you listen to your own song that you wrote, and you're like, oh my God, I also feel this meaning from it that I didn't even intend.
Yeah, and that's what I was saying, like, last night when I was talking with my sister about saying that about healing. When I wrote that song, I didn't think, oh, I'm healing. Like, this is a choice that I'm making. So that song is called Friend. And it's just talking about basically, like, my whole experience with friends. At the time I wrote it, I kind of was just dealing with it all, just realizing, like, how many friendships I had that I felt like I failed in or they failed in, and how friendship to me just seems so, like, hard to do. And so I had to do something where I just, like, realized.
It is hard, man. Like, goes back and forth, man.
Like, who in my life has been, like, the most consistent friend to me? And to me, that was, like, Jesus, the Holy Spirit, God, like, my consistent friend.
My mom. No.
Who never changes. And I certainly, like, have my family, but at times they weren't, like, there for me. And I don't have any resentment towards them because they're human. But this God who is definitely inhuman, not at all like us, was this, like, constant for me. And so I kind of just had to write something that to help me realize, like, I've always had this friend. And I, like, don't need to view myself in my life through this, like, lens anymore of failure and of strife and of, like, chaos. I need to realize, like, how deeply I've been loved and how consistently I've been cared for.
Right.
And just kind of, like, I just needed to heal from that stuff.
Yeah.
Your cake pop.
Sorry, I never
Yeah.
Do you think it's gross now?
Nah.
Or they sit for, like, a long time, right?
Yeah.
I got a cake pop from Starbucks. I'm gonna eat it, but I'm gonna completely listen. Don't pay attention to my gross mouth. I'm gonna move the microwave.
Yeah, so it was just one of those things where I realized...
It's really hard. Keep going.
Yeah. I realized last night when I was talking to her, I was like, you know what? When I wrote that song, like, I looked at the date, and I was like, when I wrote that song, that was kind of it. Like, that was kind of the moment when I decided, like, I will no longer be defined by this anymore. Like, almost like I would approach new friendships, defining it by these failures, defining it by these past things, and looking at it through that lens, which is really unhealthy. But it never really got me anywhere. And I had been doing that for, like, a number of years, just, like, you know, looking, and I didn't realize it, but looking at relationships through this lens. And so by writing that song, I finally healed and realized what kind of friend I had.
I'm so loud, I'm really sorry.
No, you're good. What kind of friend I had actually had this whole time. And just the kind of feelings that I know are in my heart about how I experience friendship and how I've been a friend. And it all was just kind of wrapped up. And at the time, I definitely did not think I was writing that song to heal or to, like, make any big move in my life.
Okay, so I think I'm losing you a little bit.
Did.
So you're saying when you wrote it just about friendship in general? But you didn't write it to heal from bad friends.
No, yeah. So when I wrote it, I wrote about my experience with friendship myself. And, like, kind of the first verse started me just kind of hashing it out. Like, this is something that's happened. This is how I felt about it.
Mm-hmm.
And by, like, the second and third verses, I'm finally seeing through the lens that the Lord has been my friend this entire time.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't even say his name as Lord or Jesus in the song. I just say my friend and you. And so the whole song is just kind of translated to talking to this friend that I have. And yeah, at the time I definitely did not write it just to heal. I started writing it just so that I could get out my feelings, these negative feelings about friendships that I had and failed things. And I just knew I needed to express that. And I wasn't finding very many productive ways. So I thought, you know what the heck, I'll try to write a song about it. And I just did. Like, it just came together.
So it was more expressing yourself than being therapeutic, like you had talked about.
Yeah.
But it later became something therapeutic for you.
Yeah, and I think it was in the moment. I just didn't realize it.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like I said, that became the turning point. And just, like, yesterday, I listened to it and then realized, like, that was a turning point. Like, that was, like, therapy to me. And that was...
You realized that you accidentally did something good.
Yeah. Like I was definitely not conscious of it. But subconsciously, I did something that healed myself of that. And I don't know...
How's the chorus go,
I don't really believe...
Because I read poetry, so you have to be a little more narcissistic. So how does the chorus go?
No, see, that's the hard thing, is there's not really a chorus. The whole song is, like, multiple verses.
Way to get out of it.
And, no, I'm sorry. So, no, it's a whole big long... It's not really... And that's the thing about this song, too. The structure is just completely... It's very fluid, so... It's just one of those things that definitely I wasn't very intentional about. It just kind of came together.
Yeah.
It wasn't something that I was, like, deliberately really trying to make exactly how it turned out. But exactly how it turned out ended up being, like, exactly what I needed.
Right. Cool. Yeah. That's cool. Yeah, music is beautiful. I like talking specifically about music with you because that's more of, like, what you've... And, okay, so I feel kind of... I've been described in a positive light as being a jack of all trades, but I almost see it as a negative because I feel like I've got, like, one foot in everything.
Yeah.
And so, you know, at a certain point, I can't be all in anything.
Yeah.
I don't know how true that is because I certainly feel like I'm all in when I'm writing. Like, I don't...
For sure.
Like, I don't think I'm, you know,
there's
an
certainly
Oscar
something
winner.
that you're really, really good at.
Right.
Like,
I don't feel like...
Even though the jack of all trades makes it seem really generic. And, like, there's many things you're okay at. And
I'm, like, okay at writing songs. I like, it's therapeutic for me. It certainly helps me. Some people seem to like the songs that I write.
Sure.
But I don't consider myself a songwriter. Like, I mean, I do write songs, but I'm not a songwriter. That's not who I am. I mean, then you get into really abstract, who are you or whatever, but, like who are you really? Isn't it bananas, just to get on a Buddy Scrum real quick, isn't it bananas to think, like, there's no way to really describe who you are? I mean, it's certainly difficult, because you can't be like, well, you're looking right at me. Like, what you see is me, but that's not even truly possible, because, I said this on the last podcast, but all of your cells are constantly replacing themselves, so you're a different human being physically. Like, this body is not the same one that it was 5 years ago. All of those cells that I had 5 years ago, completely dead, completely gone. I'm completely made of new cells now. Like, isn't that crazy? Because I'm constantly creating and getting rid of cells. Bananas to me. That, like, if I haven't seen someone, or I haven't, like, like if I hug someone and then I don't see them for 5 years and then I hug them again, they hugged a completely different set of cells.
Oh, yeah.
Like a completely different body. That's crazy. That was a money trail just for fun. Science. No, but yeah, I definitely feel a connection to music, and I do like to write. There's something special about it. There's something special about all the different forms of art that other art can't do. So certain people get caught on poetry, and certain people get caught on music.
Mm-hmm.
I used to have this really, it was more aggressive, like I was upset about it,
Mm-hmm.
because people who tend to, and this is a vast generalization, and of course there are many exceptions to what I'm about to say, but I used to feel like a lot of people who would read books would get too stuck on, like, that books are the best thing for you, and they're going to make you smarter than anything else. And I was like, I don't think that's true, because I like movies more than books. I do enjoy books. I love reading.
Yeah.
This is a great book. You should read it. Like, I literally love reading it. I feel like
Yeah.
I can't put it down. But I just feel like I enjoy and learn better from movies.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is that people say, well, there are things that books can express,
Mm-hmm.
movies can't. That is completely true. But there are also things that movies can express and show that books just can't.
Oh yeah, I think it just depends on your learning style. There's
Yeah.
lots of different ways you could learn that.
Right.
But maybe somebody watching that same movie couldn't get that out of it.
Right.
They would need to read a book about it.
Well, there is that. But what
Yeah.
I would say, I think certain people, because we all have different personalities, because we're very unique, and they take to different art styles more.
Yeah, for sure.
So, like, in books, I don't know if there's a word to describe what you can do better. I mean, you can certainly be more descriptive for a longer period of time, because movies are shorter,
Mm-hmm.
and, like, probably the audiobook of this book is, like, 15 hours or something. So even if you straight up just, like, spoke the book,
Right.
you'd only be able to get a little chunk of it for 2 hours.
Yeah.
So you can just fit more into it. But there's different things that you can fit into a movie.
Yeah.
I was drawn to this part in Call Me By Your Name just because it was a specific moment that made me think. But they go to, like, this bar or something, and the one guy starts interacting with these people that he's known for a long time,
Mm-hmm.
and the kid is sitting back and he's kind of watching him interact, and it's just this beautiful moment where you see him, like, seeing his friend interact with these people that he knows and loves, and it's just like this connection that you can just, like, this emotion that I can't really describe to you. You just have to see it, and it's like studying human nature, and you can really, like, see it. It's very nonverbal, but that's something that a book really just couldn't do, because there's no roundabout way of really putting that into words.
Yeah.
I can just see it. Same thing with music, and I think the same thing with poetry. There's these different things that the other forms just can't do. Music can't quite do what a painting can do, and a painting can't quite do what poetry can do.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it goes back and forth, because there are, like, they all like are a different shade of the same story, I guess.
Sure. Yeah.
But yeah, I certainly admire all their unique qualities, and I certainly admire music a lot, and I feel a lot, and I think a lot of people would, besides my algebra teacher, apparently.
Yeah.
Would feel a connection to music.
Right.
Have you been connected to music above? Well, I mean, first of all, would you describe yourself as someone who's connected to music above all other arts?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. How long would you say that that's been the case?
Forever.
Forever, like since the day you were born more connected to music.
Yeah, because since the day I was born, I had people singing to me. Like, literally, my uncle or my dad. I think it was my dad, maybe my uncle too. Wrote me this song just about my name.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just so silly.
Yeah.
But I think because of that, it kind of just shaped who I was. Like, my mom being a singer, being a songwriter, I grew up, music was constantly a part of my life.
Yeah.
And constantly a way we expressed things. Like, my dad would get in the car, song would be on the radio, and he would change the lyrics to fit whatever we were doing. Like, and we're in the car, and we're going to Chuck E. Cheese.
Yeah.
And he would change whatever the lyrics were to translate them into what we were doing and how we were feeling. And
yeah.
just absolutely like super fun.
Yeah, that's certainly
life.
that's like not therapeutic. What is it? It's almost like he's I don't want to say programming because that sounds negative, but like conditioning you.
Yeah,
to
that's
be
really
able
how
to
it felt.
express through music.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny because I feel like some kind of freak, like telling people how long music has been a part of my life.
I said plants have consciousness. You can say whatever you want. You're not a freak. I didn't actually say that because I don't know.
No, when I talk to people about music and things like that, they're always like, "Yeah, you've kind of always had this in your life, haven't you? You're just like so okay.
Yeah.
Like you were born for this." And that's definitely how I feel, which is like really crazy to look at it. And
for the sake of FOMO, the fear of missing out, it can feel very easy to become negative.
Exactly.
Listening to people talk about things that you just don't feel.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because this thing, I've definitely had a huge connection to music,
yeah.
but nowhere near the level that you have. And so there's a part of me when you talk about it
like,
that wants to be like,
what's that?
Well, that's weird. Whatever. That's weird that she says that. But I'm trying to deny that part of me because there's a bigger part of me that's so beautiful. Like it's cool. It's fascinating to see what other people are fascinating. I told someone that the other day, but it's fascinating to see what other people are fascinated by. Like it's cool to see
so that
different
wasn't,
eyes and
like
how
the
they
only
see
time.
things.
So it was like my parents. That was the first thing. And then we just listened to music all the time because that's kind of how my parents were.
When's the first time you wrote a song, no matter how silly or not?
No, so then I was like 3 years old, sat down on a drum set, and I was like, this is amazing. And I had such this like crazy, like, I don't know, like fear, but it wasn't like a fear. No, that's the thing. I mean, I probably could now. Like, I've got a lot more rhythm than I used to. I tried one time, though, like when I was like 10.
You could learn now, yeah.
Yeah, probably I could learn. I didn't have...
You said I probably could now, like you just accidentally said it.
No. I would definitely have to practice. But I mean, like, I probably could actually try now. Yeah. But anyways, that happened at 3, and then I'm pretty sure at 6, I wrote my first song. Maybe at 5. Just, I have, like, little notes of this still. Yeah. Because my mom's crazy and she keeps little papers.
Oh, I got my first movie right over here.
I love that so much. I love, actually, that she keeps stuff. Yeah, exactly. She keeps it, and it really helps me, though, because I can see so much of where I've been. And so she's kept these little papers that I kind of wanted to throw away, you know? And so I've got these songs.
Why did you want to throw it away?
No,
Are you not very nostalgic?
No, I mean, it's just one of those things. Like
You're just not a hoarder.
No, yeah. It's like taking up space, I guess.
Yeah.
And so I've got this song, I think it's the first one. It's like, oh, I want to fly in the sky. Like, oh. And so, you know, it's just one of those. And I can still remember how it goes when I read it. It's so weird. Like, I can still remember. But yeah, at like 6 years old, I finally was like, I need to play guitar. And my parents believed me, and they bought me a Martin guitar, which was nice.
They believed
and I was like,
you
I love
it.
that. And I didn't get to really learn that very well until I was 10. And then I wrote, I guess, like my first song that I was like, it was probably 2 years later. I finally wrote my first song that had like music and lyrics.
Yeah.
And just like was actually something I was proud enough to like show, and I still put out sometimes. So.
Oh, definitely, yeah. Well, that's super cool. I'm trying to think of closing notes. You know how long we've been podcasting?
Yeah, for like 2 hours.
For 2 hours and 8 minutes. That's so long, man.
Who's gonna listen to this so long now?
People listen to podcasts. Well, yeah, I take them in doses. I listen to podcasts when I'm driving a lot.
Right. I guess if they have a 2-hour drive.
Well, right, and you take it in increments. I think podcasts are something to listen to passively. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes I'll sit down on my couch or my computer and I'll watch a podcast of like Joe Rogan or Red Link or Rooster Teeth or something, but a lot of times I'll turn it on when I'm doing other stuff, so I can.
Right. Yeah.
It's like I feel like I'm like learning and being a part of a conversation and kind of like evolving almost while mentally evolving while doing other things. It's kind of like being double productive instead of just listening to music that I've heard 1,000 times.
Yeah.
Well, because I have a problem with listening to music. I talked about this last time where. I'll get Spotify and then I'll get a playlist of a certain amount of songs that I like, and I'll just listen to it over and over and over and over again.
Yeah, it just like memorized.
It just like ruins all the songs for me, and I'm just like, I just hear these all the time.
Yeah, people get in my car and they're like, okay, are you listening to this yet?
It's like, I haven't seen you in 5 years, you're still listening to the same playlist.
Yep.
My dad's worse than I am. I'll change playlists every few months, but my dad's still listening to the same songs that he was when I moved out, a few years ago. I'll come get in the car with him.
Mood playlists.
Yeah.
I just certainly do have that, but the mood playlists, I still like play them over and over.
Yeah, I can feel that. I'll go back to a certain time, and I like to listen to them, but it's not healthy with what I do, because I just ruin songs for me, because they just go back and forth and back and forth.
Yeah.
And it's not that it ruins it and they suck, but they just certainly don't feel anything like they did forever ago.
For sure.
Yeah, so instead of listening to the same music, it's nice to listen to a conversation, something new, and something I know that I can get into.
Mm-hmm.
I saw a comment there was this Joe Rogan, Jordan Peterson podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody commented, it was like, God, it's heroin to listen to reasonable people, or something like that.
Oh my
and I was like, I totally get it. It's like so addicting to just listen to these reasonable people talk about stuff.
Jeez.
No, but yeah. So let's wrap up. It's been a long time. I don't have a limit to these podcasts because I'm not putting them on iTunes anymore. I'm putting them on my website, so I can do however long I want. But yeah, I'm trying to think of like how normal people do, and if anybody has any comments about how long you think this podcast should be, and would be interested in listening. If it's too long, let me know.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you have anything to add or any questions for me to answer on any podcast in the future, subsequent podcast, email is my plug. It's weird because I'm like having a conversation with you, but I'm also talking to people who are maybe listening later.
Yeah.
Maybe
right.
if we ever have any people listening. Jackson at popcornspace.com. I said that?
Yeah.
It's an email. I paid money to have an email.
Nice.
Isn't that weird?
Nice.
We're such in a world of free everything. And it's so difficult because I didn't want to be unprofessional and have a Gmail anymore.
Oh, Gmail.
So my cards say Jackson, or doesn't it? Yeah, Jackson at popcornspace.com. But I ordered these cards with it saying that before I bought that email. But I was like, no one's gonna buy that. Well, no one can. I don't think.
Right.
No one can because it's my domain. I'd have to give them permission to buy it. But still, I didn't even have it, so I had to wait to get these cards out until I got it.
Jeez.
Dude, so I've been finally getting up earlier. I got up at 7:30 this morning, but because I've been getting up at like 9, 10. God, I hate getting up at 10. It feels like I'm sleeping my life away.
Yeah, it definitely is.
But it's so nice. So I was up at like 7:30 and I went to Starbucks to get some coffee, and never go to Starbucks. And I got there, and this woman was there, and she was taking forever getting her money or whatever. So I was standing behind her, and it just felt like forever. And then she kind of, I could like almost feel the energy. Like I felt like she knew that she might have been annoying me because she was taking too long. So then she was standing back there waiting for her coffee, and he was getting it, so he wasn't talking to me. So I was sitting there, I just said, engage. And I was like, hey, how's your day going? And she was like, it was just lovely. She was like, oh, it's going well. I've been awake for only about 45 minutes. I was like, well, coffee's a good way to start the day then. And she was like, yeah. And we had like a little laugh. It was a really simple conversation, but it was just a nice morning interaction. I don't know, it's sobering being up in the morning finally. God, get up early. Well, also, so I wanted to get up earlier, but specifically this book was talking about how inconsistent sleep patterns, and it doesn't really matter when you go to sleep. Like if you go to sleep one night at 9, or one night at 12, or one night at 10.
Yeah, as long as you wake up.
As long as you wake up at a consistent time.
Yeah.
So as long as I'm waking up at like 7 to 8 every morning, like it's really good for you because that if you don't, it can contribute to anxiety and depression. Same with.
Explains a lot about my life.
Right. Well, he said he's talking about and not eating breakfast can lead to anxiety and depression. And
You're like not eating breakfast.
Right, because you freaking didn't. I said I'll get coffee for us. You can go get burritos, and then you were like, I just got them for you. So you're like my what is that called? Arrowhead or whatever, the delivery service. You're like my Uber of food.
We were even.
Yeah, but I also got myself coffee, so we weren't exactly even. We were even money-wise, but
Exactly.
not enjoyment-wise. I had a burrito and coffee.
I wouldn't have enjoyed it.
Whatever. But, I was really going somewhere. Oh, okay, yeah, so eating breakfast. And I've been doing this thing, which is called intermittent fasting, which is very popular now. You've probably heard of it, which is, you eat for only a certain amount of time during the day. And it's just because the later you eat, the more, for many, many different reasons.
Right,
when you eat super late, your stomach's trying to shut down because you're trying to go to sleep, and so then it stores more as fat, and also it keeps you up because then your stomach has to work on it a little bit, and
you have energy now.
Right.
All that stuff.
But the more you eat, the more your body produces insulin, and that I think contributes to fat. I don't know the exact science, but yeah, it contributes to fat and stuff like that. And so as long as you don't have any sugar intake for the longest amount of time, and your body produces the littlest amount of insulin or whatever, I'm probably screwing up the science. I speak from memory sometimes, and it doesn't always work well. But anyways, it's good for you to only eat during a certain block of time during the day. So what I have been using for that block is like, I've been going like 12 to 5 or 12 to 6 or something like that.
Sure.
So I'll eat lunch and dinner.
Yeah.
So I haven't been eating breakfast for for months. I've been eating, I ate breakfast today, yesterday. I've been eating breakfast since I read this in the book.
Yeah.
And I started reading the book on Tuesday. So I've been eating breakfast for about 4 days now. But before that, I haven't eaten breakfast in months and months. Because I just made myself not eat breakfast. But I definitely feel like a whole lot better eating breakfast.
Yeah.
And so I'll probably just switch the time. So now I'll eat breakfast and lunch. But I don't know. It just makes me feel better about life and the world. And it's so nice to be like up in the morning and going to get breakfast and coffee and just having like a nice interaction with people. Morning is beautiful, and I know that like a lot of creative people are lazy. I don't know why that correlates, but a lot of people are like, yeah, I'm a night owl. I just work better at night. And it's like, probably not. It's just easier to stay up at night because you've been up for a long time, so you're used to being up. It's harder to wake up in the morning because you're used to sleeping and you don't want to stop that. It's like easier to keep doing what you're doing, basically.
Also, I think like, I don't know, there's something about your emotions get strung out the longer you're awake because you're like sleep deprived.
Yeah.
I think it's a lot easier to be like super
deliriously writing. I want to fly through the sky.
So high. Oh.
Yeah. All right. Well. Yeah. So coffee, morning, music is beautiful. Call Me by Your Name's a good movie. You should see.
Yeah.
It is good. I've decided it's good. It is a good movie. I had no problem. Okay, and I felt like I had to defend it when I didn't like it because I was like, I'm not anti-gay at all, and and so I told my friend he's like, are you anti-gay? And I was like, no. That was no problem whatsoever with the movie. It had to do with, and I can't even get into it because I don't want to spoil it, but it had to do with this other character that was involved that kind of got screwed over, and like whoever wrote the story like just forgot about this other person, and I was like, what about her?
Right.
Anyways, but I've gone back and forth, and I do enjoy the movie. I'm probably going to buy it, because I want to see it again, but anyways, Call Me by Your Name's a good movie. Coffee, morning, music. Anything to add? Hey, well, thank you for coming and talking to me. This week was actually supposed to be with Andrew Holmes. It was going to be a deep one. I mean, we had a deep conversation, it was good, but it was going to be...
This is just shallow.
Yeah, we're just talking about flying through the sky. No, we were going to talk about what is God, so it was going to be a little out there. But I'll probably talk to him next week or the week after, depending on when he's available. But his work schedule got changed last minute, and so legit yesterday I called Mallory and was like, hey, I need you to come podcast with me at 9 in the morning. So
if you can,
right,
please.
Right, because I got a wedding to go to today. I'm so excited. Do you remember Chad Kennedy?
Yeah,
he's getting married today.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so I get to go see that. I'm super excited. I love them both. They're so awesome.
That's awesome.
So, yeah, I guess I have to go. What do you wear to weddings? Do you wear a tie? Should I wear a tie?
Probably a button-up shirt.
A button-up shirt.
Probably the black jeans you're wearing.
I could wear khakis. I have khakis.
Wear khakis. That would be good. You
Okay.
can wear a tie if you
A
want.
tie.
That seems like you. You can wear a tie.
Okay, I'll wear a tie.
Nice.
I'll figure it out. God, this is longer than last week. So we went 11 minutes and 11 minutes. We only went 11 minutes.
Yeah, sure.
11 hours and then 20 minutes.
Oh,
11
okay.
hours. I don't even know what's going on. It's so
well,
early.
you know the time it
I
is
went-
because you can see it when you look at the podcast.
Yeah.
That's how long we went.
You did,
Like 2 hours.
Right, 2 hours. I don't even know. We gotta go. We're getting delirious now.
Yep. Alright.
Alrighty. Well,
Cool.
thank you everybody for listening. This has been a wonderful experience. So long.
So long.
I get to end the live video so these awkward people get to see